My mom keeps up with some of this stuff. She has Instagram and she watches all the YouTube videos, which I really didn't realize.
Ooh.
So I have to be
That's
careful
kind of
sometimes.
sweet. That's
It's
actually
sweet.
really sweet.
It's sweet, but then I go on Garantham and I joke at the Garantham video about, stun your balls or whatever at the end of it. And so we go out to lunch and she's like, "So, do you do perineal sunning?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "On Garantham's video," which floored me that my mother said that out. Like, I was watching Garantham.
I was
Me
about
and
to
your
say,
father.
I love the fact your mom also has a British accent just for a second there.
I was watching Garandam, and
Thank you, mother.
I'm like, Mom, no, that was a meme. I don't, I don't sun my balls,
Yeah.
which I
I
still
will
think she
admit
has
to
questions
trying it
about.
once. Just
Yeah,
not with the boys, don't worry.
thank
It
God.
actually felt
Also gay.
no,
Somehow.
is it gayer to do it on your own or with the boys? I don't know.
Well,
But
here's the
Did you
no,
make
thing.
karate noises?
Yes. No, you do a handstand and you press your fucking
Aw.
combat boots together as you're doing a handstand. No eye contact. It's
just
straight
like
as can be.
it's the crane from the Karate Kid, except on my back facing the sun.
Exactly. Yeah, but you
And
had the
I
little
will
like
admit
rising
it
sun
felt
headband.
kind of nice. Like I don't know, it's just like the sun down where the sun don't shine. Yeah, it
Feel a
felt cool, but
warmth there like you've never felt warmth before.
it was like a nice hug.
But
That's the reason they call it charging your batteries,
You're listening to the Art and More podcast with your hosts, Nathan and B.R. Nathan is a Canadian illustrator with a couple years of military experience, and B.R. is a British anarchist that moved to the States. Both are passionate shooters and community builders. Together, they run the Seaburn Art page. Enjoy the show.
Hey guys, welcome to the Art and War podcast. We've got Jared from Orion Training Group who's about to imitate my family.
Oh, hello. So happy to be back. Thank you, Betty Mutt Round Eye.
And there's the promo.
I love America so much.
Oh, Nathan, why you no doctor yet? I can't even do it as well as you do.
You haven't ordered as much cheap Chinese food as I have.
Ah.
I'll order it in that voice.
Not cheap, authentic.
Real.
That's how you get the good dog meat.
Oh,
Amen. Amen. I tell my wife all the time, I was like, this cat keeps acting up. It's going to be chicken on a stick at the local corner store here in a minute.
That's kind of why I like having a dog. She follows me around everywhere, and it's just like it's literally just meals on, not meals on wheels, meals on legs.
Yeah, I keep mine fattened up so I can do like pork fried rice or whatever. My cats.
You gotta be active with that prepper mindset.
That's it.
Dude, have you seen the show Beef on Netflix? I know Netflix is gay and retarded, but it's really good.
I have not.
It's just about it's like two Asian people almost get in a car accident in a parking lot, which turns into a whole road rage thing where they're chasing each other through the streets and all of that. And it escalates within its natural limits. Yeah, it just escalates, and the whole thing's really fucking good. I really recommend it.
So it's not actually about beef, like the meat.
No, it's not about. It's beef, like two people squabbling.
Two people beefing, yeah.
Yeah, like one person does a traffic infraction, the other person flips them off. The next person, then the first person like chases them in their car. They drive over a flower bed. All this stuff, and the rest of the show is ostensibly without ruining anything. Them doing wacky hijinks to destroy each other's lives. It's actually a lot deeper and more poignant than that. But
is this an American film?
Yeah, it takes place in L.A. It
I'll have
stars
to go watch
Steven
it.
Yeun and the Korean guy from The Walking Dead, and another lady who I don't remember the name of, but she's a fantastic actress. A24 produces it.
Yeah, she's a shitty comedian. It's that Asian woman that's like always pregnant, and that's her bit. I think it's Ali Wong. Like, no, seriously, that's all I know of her. She's a shitty comedian, but a good actress.
Yeah, no, she's a fantastic actress. The Asian actress that's not Lucy Liu and not Awkwafina. That's
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
No, she actually did a great job. But yeah, anyways, welcome back to the Art and War podcast. Here's
the
weekly racism segment.
Oh my god.
We'll do fat shaming next.
We'll do fat shaming next. Oh, dude, America has been bad. America has been bad. I will admit, I actually have not been good here. But I've been following some of your advice and all of that, and like going for a run every day, eating like not dog shit, cutting out seed oils, all of that, and I feel fucking fantastic. I feel like
that's so good to hear.
Yeah, no, seriously. I don't know when the last episode would be, but like just getting a bit of sunlight every day is so fucking important.
It really is. I go out every morning with my coffee and I'll stand in the sun just with my skivvies on for 10-15 minutes and kind of rotisserie myself and just absorb. It's just really good for you.
Do you do that thing a handstand and get your balls and asshole?
I've tried it, but I don't have a fence and I live in a neighborhood, so I run into a lot of risks.
I'm so curious. Like, I don't know. I don't know how it feels. I'm yet to partake. I need to. I kind of genuinely.
I would say start slow because it's really easy to burn things that have never seen the light of day. Real talk. But
Gents,
you know.
Be careful.
If you're listening to this, I'm not saying get melanoma on the tip of your penis. Just take your time.
I mean, God, my mind jumps to like my social group when COVID hit got kind of weird.
Okay.
And I remember like,
where is this going?
Yeah.
Like most of the dudes into it got really into sunning their taints and balls and like all of that.
Based.
And they'd get together and like lie on one of their roofs and just like face the sun with their assholes.
All together?
We've crossed into new. We've crossed into different
crossed
territory.
well into like gay territory.
Yeah, it's like barely defensible. Like you can put as many like Easter Island heads next to that as you want. Like it's still.
I did not take part in this, to be clear. I very much made fun of it. But yeah,
Asians are very homophobic, so that tracks.
Yes, very. That kind of like I think I've brought this up on the show before. The Asian side of my family is like hyper liberal. Like they identify hyper liberal. They're like, oh yes, tax. Oh yes, you got to get like those. We have a society. We got to get rid of those nasty Trump supporters. So and so. We should make this. And like they are also the most unironically racist and homophobic people I've ever met. I find it hilarious. It is.
And you know what? I can't remember the comedian's name. He's a big fat white dude that always makes jokes about Down syndrome. Do y'all remember who I'm talking about?
Shane Gillis.
Shane Gillis, yes.
Yes, Secret Podcast.
Like that.
Yeah.
You guys have had him on here?
No. God, I would.
Would that be incredible?
Yeah. That would actually be badass. I think Shane Gillis is hilarious. Lucas from the podcast, who I don't know when this will come out, but Lucas apologizes that he hasn't been on for a Schizocast for a little while. He's been in the hospital because he got, I don't know, AIDS.
Jeez.
But he will get better. He doesn't have Magic Johnson money, but
no.
He doesn't have any experimental treatments, but we keep joking about the racism thing. Shane Gillis does a skit about racism being like hunger. It's just it's all about where you're at during the day.
Yeah.
You're not hungry until a hamburger cuts you off in traffic. And then you are just a little bit, I think that probably applies to most people, even hyper liberal Chinese Canadians,
Yes. Though I think my mom's running at a solid, just like it's always racism o'clock. I remember when I was fairly young, and like growing up in Nova Scotia, there weren't a lot of black people, and I don't want to say like there weren't a lot of black people until recently, but that's kind of the truth. I was like one Asian kid of a few, and everything else is just like a sea of jasmine rice white as far as the eye could see. But I remember her telling me not to go to like certain countries or areas because the dark people live there.
Oh my god.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't think that ever changed. She warns me, but in fairness, she warns me the same about like poor white people. So I don't really know what to say.
We are
more of a classist.
We are a dangerous people.
Yeah.
Right.
She sent me a text while I was driving through Tennessee, just being like, be careful of the rednecks. They're going to hate crime you. So I replied with like a photo of a Glock on my lap, and she replies with, well, they have machine guns. And it's like, like, I wish they had machine guns.
Mother, I can't send you a picture of my natural response to that, but don't worry about it.
It's just like the most CNN response. The most like...
That's regurgitation at its finest.
Yeah.
You know, you can buy a gun in 5 minutes at the local counter store. I'm like, I really wish that was true.
Yeah, no, I told her I bought a machine gun on Amazon, and she believed me.
Mom, America's great. Just like shittily Photoshop an M240B as like arriving at your front door like soon.
I love that. I'm
gonna do that to my mom.
Oh my God, she'll explode.
She'd be
just put it next to like beans on toast or something.
Yeah, see, my mom, like, for a little English woman, she's surprisingly not anti-gun. Like, COVID made her like she now sends me Alex Jones videos. Like, COVID broke her like it did many people. Which honestly, I'm fucking here for it. Like, I'm not a big... Alex Jones is entertaining. I don't think he's like a messiah on all things, but he has some points here and there. But she'll just send me InfoWars shit and like all of these like COVID aftermath things, and I'm like, fucking based, Mom. Like, hell yeah. So if I sent her that I had an M240 arriving, she'd be like, oh, is that legal now? Be like, sure. And she's like,
awesome.
oh, what do you call them? Careful. The Fed boys.
Yeah, the Fed boy.
My mom keeps up with some of this stuff. She has Instagram and she watches all the YouTube videos, which I really didn't realize. So I have to be careful sometimes.
Sweet. That's actually really sweet.
It's sweet, but then I go on Garantham and I joke at the Garantham video about, you know, stun your balls or whatever at the end of it. And so we go out to lunch and she's like, so do you do perineal sunning? And I was like, what? And she's like, on Garantham's video, which floored me that my mother said that out. Like, I was watching Garantham.
I love the fact your mom also has a British accent, just for a second.
I was watching Garantham, and
thank you, mother.
I'm like, Mom, no, that was a meme. I don't, I don't sun my balls,
Yeah.
Which I
will
think she
admit
has
to trying it
about.
once, just not with the boys. Don't worry.
Thank God.
Also gay. Somehow.
Is it gayer to do it on your own or with the boys? I don't know.
But
did you make karate noises?
Yes. No, you do a handstand and you press your fucking combat boots together as you're doing a handstand. No eye contact. It's just straight as can be.
It's like the crane from the Karate Kid, except on my back, facing the sun.
Exactly. Yeah, but you have the little like rising sun headband.
Kind of nice. Like I don't know. It's just like the sun down where the sun don't shine.
Feel a warmth there like you've never felt warmth before.
It was like a nice hug.
But that's the reason they call it charging your batteries, We are 10 minutes into recording this thing, and all we've talked about is racism and buttholes.
Yeah, welcome to
eating dogs. Don't
Jared has accidentally found himself on a Schizocast episode.
I was going to say that's
like by the third time someone comes back, I think you're our most recurring guest now at this point.
Yeah, and I was like number 17, and then we were in like the hundreds, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
This would be somewhere in the 130s.
Yeah, but by the third time someone comes back on, it's a Schizocast.
Yeah, all barriers have been broken down. There is no professionalism left in us. Like, you're now just one of the boys, and you have to put up with us at our base level. So
we're all going to go sun our balls together.
I'm going to go ahead and just put a pin in that and say that's not happening. Just for anyone listening,
we'll get a rain check on that.
Rain check.
Yeah, well, if it rains, I'm definitely not going like butthole to the sky. That's the opposite, but yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I was going to say, the roof of the new PSOC, it looks like it catches a lot of sun.
So for anyone wondering, we have 2 classes coming up, and we might do perineal sunning at lunch.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. It's bonding
All right,
time with the
boys.
lad.
Yep, take off your cries.
You could just get the new UF Pro, which has the perineal sunning quad zipper, and you can vent your asshole to the sky. You know?
Did we ever talk about on the show the last training class that we did in defensive action center? Did we ever talk about the little old lady that came in and started yelling at everyone?
No, but that's amazing. That's such a good memory.
What happened with that?
Dude. So this lady
she's like
walks into the front door. What would you say, like late 60s?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And we're running a class, and I guess one of the students had gone out of the front door and just not locked it, which is understandable because they weren't thinking about that, and I don't think Ty had locked it either. So the lady just walks in, and if you've ever been to Defensive Action Center, which, rest in peace, they no longer have that facility, but there's not an area that you walk into and conduct a transaction. It's just a building, and they have some couches and stuff set up. So she walks in and probably looked a lot like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction. It's like, where the fuck is everybody? She walks to the back where we're doing CQB training, and she's just like T-posing in the door, like the lady from fucking Legion. And
That's a power move.
I'm like, ma'am. She's like, it says defensive on the door, but I could have snuck up on all of you, She starts talking shit on everybody, and she's like, who's the owner of this place? I'm trying to do a class, and she was just kind of going on and on about how she wasn't being served right. So Ty had gone to like catch a chicken that had got out or some shit, and so I had to call him, and it went to voicemail because he lives in the middle of nowhere. So I told her, like, look, the guy that owns it is gone. We're running a class here. I don't have anything to do with the facility. Just call him back, at this number. And she was like, I don't know if I want to train here now that I know they just leave the front door wide open.
There's so much to unpack in all of that. First, like, it's a little old lady looking for training. Second, it's like a bunch of dudes in kit, and I think there was that massive Washington cop, like the SWAT guy, who was the first person that she saw, is next to you, and she just
Lee is
calls you
just a
hooligans
beefcake.
immediately.
Yeah, all these hooligans, huh? It's really something.
That was fucking hilarious, though. That was good times. But yeah, what's been new with OTG and the whole ecosystem since last time we talked?
Man, well, last year we did really, really well. Massive growth, just compared to the year before that, which is always humbling. And we're trying to at least stay on par with that, if not grow a little bit this year. So we're doing things differently as far as our marketing goes and the way that we're structuring classes. So everything that we offered last year that's not Force on Force, we're offering Force on Force this year, which, if people that are listening, or if you guys don't know the difference, basically you can learn all the movements that you want, and without Force on Force, the only stimulus you get for a mistake is me wagging my finger at you and telling you, like, well, that would have got you killed, But in Force on Force,
not
you
quite the
get
same
zapped.
repercussions.
Right.
You
And
actually get schwacked by something.
Right. If we talk about like human psychology and using it as a teaching method, the permanence of the lesson is so much greater when you actually get popped for doing something wrong, right? It's like getting grounded versus getting spanked. Trauma does some things, right? Besides give you all kinds of wonderful kinks. So I think that Force on Force really trains people in a way that you cannot replicate without it. And so we wanted to, now that we've gotten, big enough, or we've been around long enough to have a customer base, we can start to offer that to people, and it'll be seen not only as legitimate, but as a new version of curriculum that people like, Nathan, who's been to a couple of classes, will want to come back and take something that now has well, it technically is a higher level of difficulty. It's the exact same curriculum. So there's repeat value, there's new value, and it's just the next step for training. So we're doing a lot of that. We're doing a lot more long range stuff. So JD, our long range guy, just retired from SEAL Team 10, and he's got a really good program. So we're doing a lot with him. Blake, Blake is such a treasure. For anyone who's not listening,
Blake.
Dude, he's so awesome. Blake Flannery, if you're listening, you're not following him. Blake Water 0326 on Instagram.
Yeah.
And 20 years in Force Recon, or 20 years as a Marine, 18 in Force Recon. But he's got two new things for curriculum this year. We've launched SUS last year with the marketing that, like, you can get SUS in the woods with Blake. And that's small unit sustainment. So basically it's 5 days, in the woods with Blake, learning field craft and small unit tactics. and for really cheap too. It's only $1,000 for 5 days, $200 a day. So you're looking at 10 to 12-hour days. You're paying the dude like $18 an hour, $20 an hour for what you're learning, which is pretty cheap.
Yeah, and he's such a wealth of knowledge. Like
he is, man.
It's wild to me. I don't know if you follow him, BR, but like
no, I do.
Yeah, he's like I follow his posts semi-religiously.
Yeah, he's changed a lot of the way I think about some things, and he has a lot of experience that I don't. And so he's one of those people that's really been monumental for our curriculum development, because a lot of us are cops and he's not, which is good.
Yeah, he was Force Recon, wasn't he?
Yeah, for 18 years.
He just fucking said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of interview are you?
Yeah, I know your eyes are partly closed, but your ears should be wide open.
You'd think like dulling those senses would like give him the daredevil effect.
Right. I hear
fellas.
everything.
I haven't had my requisite dog heat today.
Right. Go eat some rice.
You're like, yeah. On Blake's class, like, what kind of level should someone be going in at? Like, obviously you don't want someone who's like a dribbling like mess, but like what kind of it's so hard to quantify, especially for the citizen rifleman, but what kind of general things would you advise people to be capable of to then take the sus class?
It's a wonderful question. So to put it in perspective, he has SUM, or SUM, which is small unit maneuvers. Same first 2.5, 3 days. And that class is 8 to 10 hours on your feet, learning patrolling movements. The only difference between SUM and sus is that sus has 2 days in the field. So you have to spend a night sleeping in a hole with a tarp over you, doing night watches, fire watch, all that kind of crap. So I would say the main thing is just being decently fit. You don't have to be a freaking bodybuilder or anything, but if you hadn't gotten off the couch in a few months, it might be tough when you've got to carry 50 pounds of shit around for 2 or 3 days. So that's what most people experience, is just, wow, I thought I was pretty fit, but actually I'm not. There's no shooting involved. It's learning movement, which is also, not to derail off of what you just asked, but he created a new curriculum called FAM, Fire and Maneuver, and that is the SUM curriculum, but it's live fire. So you do the same movements and then you test it live fire.
That's awesome, and I think that's something that more people need to do.
Yes, so that's that one. You're going to learn all the same stuff, but you actually get to shoot, and it's a little, not to say dumbed down, but the scenarios in which you're shooting are very structured so that we don't have an accident.
Yeah.
But it gives people the confidence to say, I can shoot and maneuver. So to answer your question, BR, what someone really needs is to understand the dedication to the 3 to 5 days of training and the necessity of basic physical fitness, I think, is what most people lack. Otherwise, it's just carrying stuff around with you and then repeating what Blake is telling you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think that's important in any curriculum. Understand the why instead of just the what.
Yeah, and correct.
I appreciate how both you and Blake do that. I'm
yes.
Totally off topic. I'm kind of fucking around with a piece here, and I realized I broke my TLR7 somehow. Totally unrelated.
Do you know what your first mistake was?
What?
Buying a TLR7.
You know what?
Yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding. For all the Streamlight stands.
Controversial.
You know, I carried an X300 for a little while, and it just like, it was just ball crusher 9,000.
Yeah,
like, we're not all.
It was an intimidating size for you. I understand.
We are not all mountain men like you, Jared.
Well,
it's, some of us are manlets.
It's for me, I like to carry on the hip. I can still carry hip as well. I'm not a huge fan of appendix, and I know that's going to get me absolutely crucified. But I have found that with a full size with an X300, I don't care what wizardry you do, you're not going to make that comfortable, especially on a long drive, or if you're doing a lot of up and down sitting. You're having to touch it and move it and get it out of your way to do so, which is a really, really clear tell of what you have in the front of you. So if I have to touch it constantly in order to get it out of my way, then I'm not really concealing it. And that's what I found I was doing. So I carry with a really closely set holster on my hip outside the waistband, so that I don't have to buy bigger pants. I don't have to do anything fucky with my belt. And that alleviates the problem of having the Ball Crusher 9000. So I can have the light I want. I can have the full size. And I just wear a baggier shirt. And, I'm I lift a lot of weights, so I can fill out the top half of the shirt at least and let the bottom kind of flow, you know. But yeah, t-shirt carry is basically impossible with what I do, which sucks. Unless I whip out the what's the little baby Glock, the 43.
I like those things.
And I like it, but I don't like it. You know what I mean? Like I'm glad I have it, but I'm not like, yeah, I'd much rather have just 50 something rounds. You know, you never know who you're gonna find that needs some, and I don't want to just have a mag of 8 and a mag of 8, which is less than one mag in the other full size. You know.
I think Zev is putting out a lower for those things that holds 15. Like they take P365 mags.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a neat little thing. They had it at SHOT Show. Not affiliated with Zev. I wish we were. If you work for Zev, I'm a fan of your company. I'll suck your no, okay.
Well, I'll balance that out. I'll balance that out for you. I've never seen a Zev not break in class. So there you have it.
Oof.
There we go. All right, we're back to neutral pH.
I'm super curious. Like the OZ9s or the
OZ9s.
Yeah.
The parts of the frame, pins rocking out of place.
Oof.
And I don't necessarily think that's Zev's fault. I think it's that they encourage customization and user builds. And because you have a user making it and they maybe aren't trained to do so, or they just aren't aware of what someone else who's an armorer would catch. Then again, I know a lot of armorers who are just retarded. But the point I'm making is I don't think it's that Zev is bad quality. I think it's that Zev is built around do whatever you want to your gun, and I am typically not that guy. I want something out the box that I have a warranty on.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems that can happen with tolerance stacking and everything else.
Correct.
Most of your problems happen with like bad fitment between the lower and the upper. It would surprise me if anything on the frame breaks because like it's like a SIG. It's
I haven't seen the frame break. It's just like small shit that doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
I will
or
say,
like weird rounds, stovepiping a lot, stuff like that, because there's something is slightly out of whack, you know.
Yeah, it's like their upper parts kits I've never had good luck with. I just like the idea of a modular frame because like
certainly,
I like that. I like Lego. I really like.
Is
Lego.
that the one with the engraved part is separate from the lower?
Yeah, it's like a SIG. It's
like the SIG. Yeah,
it's the kind of the answer to the P320, but it takes Glock parts, and I think that's fucking.
And it doesn't
awesome.
explode.
Glonk supremacy.
But like when you have like super high
BR's
speed
a
uppers,
CZ
which I
guy.
don't like.
Fuck no, I'm not. No. Wait, this is a Glock neighborhood.
Okay,
this
thank
is a
God.
Glock neighborhood. No siggers allowed.
God.
Oh my God, there it is. I've been waiting for someone to say that.
I don't know why I set him up. I get so many fucking messages every time of people being like, "Thanks, BR, for not censoring that," and I'm just like, I just have like a personal crisis every time he says it on the show.
Yeah. I'm not even. You know what? I'm not even going to get into that. I'm just glad to be back, boys.
Hey,
glad to be back.
We are so back. I did have more questions on the Blake thing. Like,
please, no, take it away.
Sorry, I totally
please get us out of
this while I looked down the barrel of my pistol, contemplating, ending it all as usual.
Like,
and
do I have any more questions, or do I just want to change these guys?
I have this new 308 that I need to christen. You know, I can fit my toe in the trigger guard.
The long range stuff.
Yeah, so I'm very much not good at long range shooting in the sense that I've never been formally trained on it.
Yes.
The farthest shot I've ever made on anything that I was actually measuring was 413 yards. I shot a prairie dog, and exploded him because that used to be like family recreation. We would go prairie dog hunting. So and I was like 14. So I haven't done
pretty good shot for 413 yards.
Yeah, I mean we're bullseyeing P-dogs. I sound like Luke Skywalker. I'm like, yeah, I used to shoot womp rats in my backyard. But that's basically how it is. I grew up, farm boy style, killing animals for food, or
you were
getting rid of pests.
So
correct. So yes, that 308 is built out to take a mid and a long range class. So I'm looking at Precore. I talked to Fred Baker, who teaches with Precore, and then I also
I like him a lot. Yeah,
Fred's awesome. And he's such a down-to-earth dude. Like, we don't see eye to eye on several things like systems of tactics questions or just small shit that doesn't really matter. But he's such a humble dude, and he'll have the conversation without any animosity. He's not he's not trying to get you like with a gotcha. He just literally wants to talk, and I appreciate that about him.
Yeah.
So we talk a decent amount in the background. I'm not trying to be like, I talk to Fred, but I asked him about their classes and stuff. So I'm hoping, I think they said they're going to list one in October somewhere down south, Georgia or Florida or something. So I'm going to try and go to that one.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, our camera guy Phil's been out to one of the pre-cool classes, and he's been wanting to go back for the follow up. Said it was excellent stuff. So
Yeah, Blake
I'd love
took
to get
one.
on at some point.
Yeah, Blake makes a habit of taking 4 or 5 other people's courses a year. He doesn't talk about it on the internet because he's not trying to do it for clout, but he wants to learn how other people are teaching. And again, not to speak for Blake, but teaching in the private sector is something he is newer to because he's mostly taught young Marines, and now he's a primary instructor for other DoD programs. So he's that civilian contractor that gets brought in to teach at pipelines for other SOF stuff. And teaching civilians is an absolute blast for him because people actually want to be there. They're highly motivated.
BR here with a quick word from our newest sponsor of the show that made our first video podcast possible, the great people over at Attorneys for Freedom. Attorneys for Freedom are a real criminal defense law firm offering attorneys on retainer for legal representation in self-defense cases, and are not some insurance company or provider. This means that Attorneys for Freedom are able to cover scenarios that are often denied coverage by other programs. Self-defense scenarios such as while in gun-free zones or sensitive areas, while under the influence or on medication, scenarios where you knew your attacker, and while using any weapon in self-defense, from a firearm to a household object or otherwise. Additionally, Attorneys for Freedom will not drop you from coverage, nor will they ever ask you to pay them back. Even if you take a plea deal where you admit guilt to a criminal act, Attorneys for Freedom will not ask to recoup their fees. Attorneys for Freedom covers 100% of your attorney's fees in the event that you can reasonably argue that you were acting in self-defense, and now you're facing serious felony charges. The primary key to coverage is their ability to reasonably argue self-defense in court. Nathan and I have signed up already, and you can too in no time at all. The National Self-Protection Plan is available with a one-time sign-up fee of $100 and just $35 per month after that. Family plans and annual rates are also available. Signing up via the link in the show notes or via the Seaburn Art Instagram bio link helps support the show with both your initial sign-up and every month you retain Attorneys for Freedom services. Get covered in all 50 states, support the show, and have peace of mind that should your worst day come, Attorneys for Freedom has your back. Thanks for listening, people. How's it going, lads and ladies? BR here with a quick word from the longest running sponsor of the Art and War podcast, Advanced Warfighting Solutions. AWS have been making tough as hell gear for decades right here in the US in North Carolina. Nathan, myself, and thousands of others run that gear through the ringer and trust our lives to it, whether that's LARPing in the woods or dragging kit through war zones. AWS manufactures many great packs, pouches, plate carriers, and our personal favorite, the SMU Operator Belt. A set-and-forget gun belt that crushes in build quality, capability, and excellent feedback from its many users. We are tough on our gear here at Art and War, and the SMU takes that treatment in its stride. Though already at a sweet price point, you can knock $10 more off your SMU belt with the code ARTandWar10 at awsin.com. The code and link to the AWS website can be found in the show description. Thanks for listening, now let's get back to the show.
That's what I wanted to ask some more questions about, because at
Please
the minute we've got this massive explosion of, maybe the wrong phrasing for what I'm gonna get into, but of regular citizen riflemen trying to figure out a way to get this knowledge, get some kind of system together, and then share that and proliferate that as much as possible. And there's plenty of people who have relevant experience, former service guys and all that kind of thing. But finding a place to start, a ground level to when someone is like, hey, can I come out and train with you guys, and getting them up to a base infantryman level, I've found in groups that I've worked with and people I've talked to across the country, it's very difficult to find what are the minimum skills and the minimum expectations, and even things as simple as a packing list. You can,
it's a lot.
It is with the sus class, is that something, again, kind of, because it seems like a good way to maybe take a few leaders from these various groups and kind of train them up to a base level, and then have them kind of return home and proliferate
Yes.
that. But is like a packing list? Is that something provided? Are these guys expected to rock up
Yes.
with their own kit?
Yeah, it's a massive packing list, and honestly, when Blake and we've been talking about this class for 3 years,
Yeah.
and that was my main thing was, dude, we're not well known enough to ask somebody to bring $2,000 worth of crap to a $1,000 class.
That's the
You know what I
thing that
mean?
yeah, that is what blows people away about like getting started with even like, hey, go out and do some like basic patrolling and land nav, and if you have the luxury of public land and wilderness to do that stuff in, or private land, whatever it is. um People are really blown away by just how many little things. Like if you're
Yeah,
if we were trying to get like back when I was in Arizona, we'd try and get new guys out with us, and most people would just cobble together all of their secondary stuff and be like, hey man, I've got this for you, I've got this, I've got this. But like it was pretty fucking immense, just the things you need to cobble together to make sure a guy doesn't, I
it's a
mean,
lot.
you can, if you really want to go bare bones, like Bear Grylls, absolutely, you can do that. But if you're trying to set up like a proper sustainment kit, it's not
Right.
it's not like dead simple. Especially, and
Yeah.
then it
I
varies
mean,
depending on what part of the country you're in.
and even then, when we talk about sustainment, which of course is the second S in sus, how long are you really sustaining for? Because at some point, you're going to run out of the boo boo kit and you're going to run out of the filters for your water filtration. And so, part of what gets missed too, especially in civilian groups, is scope. Like,
Yeah,
what is the scope of your training? And when you don't have a mission driving that scope, it can be as narrow as all I think I need is concealed carry and a tourniquet, and as broad as I need a 100-man element to be able to, defend a fortress in the woods.
yeah, yeah.
And
We
it's
we will
like,
not be returning to civilization.
right, right. Like we're going to repopulate the earth, and it's like,
Yep.
okay, bro, let's pump the brakes a little bit. So, but you can't. It would be wrong of any of us if we want to get into the ethics side of it to tell both of those people that they're incorrect, because
Yeah,
ultimately, in a free society, your use case and what you feel that you should prepare for is. I cannot convince someone of some impending doom. And if I do, now I'm selling fear, and that's not what I want to do. So I would like to be the guy that says, hey, if you feel this is necessary, we'll show you the right way to do it. Which is why we have a concealed carry performance class. You be the baddest motherfucker out of a appendix holster if you want to take that course. And we got the the sus class, so you can be the guy that walks around with a big 308 and a 50-liter backpack full of shit and learns how to sleep in the rain if that's what you feel is necessary. We would rather provide that at like a free market level, and kind of shy away from telling people what they need or don't need.
yeah.
So I know you had asked again. This was probably 20 minutes ago. The original
No, no,
question
no.
was like, what do they need for that course? Other than basic physical fitness, there is a packing list, and it is rather extensive. And part of why Blake includes all the knickknacks is that he's going to talk about all the tidbits for each knickknack. I pick on him because he does a POI on how to pack your socks, and it's really good information. It's shit that I never
Yeah.
thought of. I'm like, wow, that would actually keep my socks from getting wet, and it would give me fresh, dry, powdered socks with foot powder in them that I can simply put on my foot and put my foot back in the boot. No powders left behind on the ground. There's no odor. I have somewhere I can put my old socks, and the powder left in the bag soaks up the moisture. So I have second and third line replacements. I mean, like, and I'm like, this is like a scientific POI on how to pack your fucking socks, and it's good information. That's what keeps you from getting trench foot and getting blisters. And if your feet gets messed up, the whole rest of the mission is messed up. So it's like like you said, there's so many little things that people will go, oh, I'm not packing foot powder and extra socks, and then they get out there and it rains, and Blake's like, okay, guys, we're gonna do our foot powder and socks POI, and they're
Fuck.
like, I didn't bring that. I didn't think that was serious. And he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
fucked, dude. Your skin's gonna fall off your feet. So there's a lot of people come out of that class saying like I didn't realize just how much information it really was going to be because it's 5 days and you're stuck with this big bear. Blake's a big dude, and it's a lot of information, man. So if anybody listening is considering it, I know it's a big burden on the kit, and I know $1,000 is a lot of money, but it's kind of the only place you're going to get that much value,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, I like that. I kind of wish I lived a little closer because I really like Blake, and I think that the curriculum is very useful, and it is something that a lot more people should think about. What you said there kind of brings me into my next point that I've been wanting to talk to you for a bit, and I think we've touched on this in previous episodes, but use cases. And
right.
the variety of training that you have, like you can be the fastest guy out of a holster. Can you actually, make hits? Do you know how to? And that's a totally different class than what Blake offers, like sus, and that's a totally different class than what you and other guys offer, which is totally different than, say, what a practical shooter would offer. And I see a lot of people from different camps shitting on each other's training regimens and shitting on people, being like, hey, well, this is not useful, you don't need to learn this because frag grenades exist, which it's like, my brother in Christ, let's see your stash of frag grenades.
Yeah, where's that AT4, boss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's always bothered me, even back to like a few years ago. It's like the micro rig hate that was all the rage for like a year. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, if you want to stay low vis, you may as well just have a laptop bag with mags in it. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, I'm not reloading from a laptop bag. I don't know what you're doing, but
I can remember reading those posts with a chest rig on, doing low visibility stuff, counter human trafficking operations and stuff, with a button up shirt like this over the rig, and I was like, this is very concealed. Like, what are these guys talking about? But it's people that have never done it, and they're just theorizing, right? And that's another thing that gets demonized a lot, is like, well, you've never done it, so you can't have an opinion. Yes and no. Like, anyone with rational thought can say, hey, these two things are both viable options. The problem is people that have not done it then try to speak from a place of experience because they're regurgitating someone else's experience. And that's what we have to be careful of too with those kind of arguments, right? So, but yeah, on use cases. So if we try to tell people what they need, we start getting into like utilitarian ethics. Like, this isn't useful to you, so you don't deserve it. And I feel like that, one, that's very un-American. And two, it's usually self-serving. So a lot of the guys that say you don't need CQB, you only need to shoot a pistol, are people that only teach pistol classes. The FBI would call that a clue, right? They're trying to drive business in their direction. So I would say that the discussion on use cases is often, you don't have this use case. And what it should be is, if you do have this use case, here is the answer. So we shouldn't tell people, here's the use case, that you have, so you can only learn this. We should simply offer the solution to the use case, and if the person feels they fit that, here's the free market solution. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think it's maybe even an oversimplification, but it really is. Sometimes it's that simple. It's not my job to tell you what you do or don't need. It's my job that if you want this, I'll do my best to give you the actual right answers and not sugarcoat it or sell you some bullshit. For example, on the selling bullshit topic, people will say, okay, a group of civilians that have never trained together and may never see each other again, learning team-based tactics is a waste of their time. You're selling them something that they're never going to use. And so that makes you a bad actor because you're taking people's money, right? What they don't see is that a principles-based curriculum that is teaching people leadership, teamwork, thinking on the fly, decision making, the ability to network and connect with people they don't know. There's a lot of intrinsic skills that come with the ability to conduct an exercise under stress with people that are strangers. And after 3 days, you guys can hit an unscripted floor plan and crush a building together. But what did you really learn? You learn, and this is an actual part of the POI, we teach people how to build their own TTP in these classes. So, like what BR said, you can get somebody who might be a team leader, and he comes into this class, and his mind is usually blown that they can be given 3 or 4 solutions, allowed to enact those solutions, and then every class picks their own SOP. And you saw that before, Nathan.
Yeah, in the
So,
first and second class I did with you, totally different SOPs, and they worked.
yep,
They worked great.
and they worked.
One worked better for the first group of guys, the second worked better with the second group of guys, and they chose it. You presented a few options, and it's like, okay, here's one option, here's another option, we'll stick with this.
Yep. And so that's what people are getting out of those classes, is not, okay, here's a methodology that you can plug and play, teach all your friends, this is the right way. What we do is we say, well, here's the governing principles of all these philosophies. Like SEALs and Green Berets do things differently. Well, they have different experiences, they have different tribal knowledge, things that are passed down from person to person that they think is more important than what another person might pass down to their trainees and stuff. but ultimately both teams are well respected and good at what they do. So is either one wrong? If one prioritizes center checking and the other one prioritizes double panning, they're not wrong. They just picked one that they liked better and they got really good at it.
Yeah.
So that is what we try to do with our classes instead of, and I think honestly, I could do a better job of marketing that concept. If people read captions, that'd be huge. But I think that I think that people see like team-based CQB and we let in civilians and they think, wow, you're just stealing their money because they're not going to use that.
Yeah.
The reality is what they're learning is basic set of principles and then how to apply it and flex it and a little bit on how to teach it. It's not a train the trainer class, but if you have people that know a little bit about what they're doing, you can take the material that we give you and you can build something at least repeatable for your group, your SWAT team, your crew, the M word, if you want to say militia or whatever it is you're bringing it back to. Again, I don't know your use case, but I'm giving you the tools to make you better at whatever it is that you're in that free market purchasing of.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you agree with the principle or the idea that one of the best ways for people to learn, like fully learn and retain knowledge, is to be able to like teach others that knowledge?
I would say that teaching in itself is a skill, sort
Yeah,
of like
no,
shooting.
yeah,
Yeah. So the ability to teach effectively, I would separate from that concept, but I would say that yes, it is true. If you can teach it, you must be very intimately familiar with it. So I wouldn't say that teaching makes you learn it. I would say that teaching allows you to build a pathway at a higher level because you must have learned it so well already.
yeah.
So that's kind of a circular way of saying yes to your question. I
No, no,
just don't
no.
want
It's
people to think that, like I have to be able to teach it in order to really have learned it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
like on a much lower level, obviously, like very informal classes, like the thing I have the most experience with is like teaching new shooters of any kind of instructional thing that I've done in
Hmm.
my life. And I've always found like if I take someone out like a handful of times to teach them shooting, and then like say fourth or fifth time we bring out someone who's like way newer than them, then I'll kind of like, and again completely informal teaching, but I'll then get the slightly more experienced newbie to teach the completely new
Yep,
person the concepts and kind of just watch them and like politely correct them and make sure everyone is clear on anything that's incorrect. But like generally that's kind of where I see the most development at that
I
very
agree.
low introductory level. Like is that something, is there any element of that in your classes, like kind of watching for Chinese whispers and making sure people are actually taking that
Yes.
in? Yeah.
Yeah, so I understand your question better now, and yes, I would definitely agree. So one thing that we try to include in the curriculum is having the students observe and then give thoughtful input. So a lot of times you'll have a company that will have 20 students come out and they have one instructor.
Yeah.
We try to limit it to 8 students per instructor, and those students do breakout sessions with each instructor and they rotate stations, unless it's the kind of thing like the ones Nathan's been to where it's just me. And at each of those stations, let's say you have one guy doing a center check learning, you got 7 people just standing there looking at their feet.
Yeah.
So what we tell them is, hey guys, you've seen us demo it, you've heard us talk about it, we've taught you it, and now you're going through a guided rep. You're going to learn it better if you watch for someone else's mistakes. And if you can pick up a mistake, that means you know what right looks like. So we would like for you guys to give critique, to point things out. And we sort of try to create a culture in classes that if people are encouraged to speak up if they have a question or see something, as well as about each other. So they can say, hey, I noticed that when he put his foot there and stepped this way, it made his hips turn the other direction. Isn't that wrong? We say, well, footwork is, over taught sometimes, but you're right. It would be more efficient if he did this. Good eye. And now everybody goes, oh shit, yeah, I did see that. I wasn't even paying attention. So
Yeah.
I completely agree that at an introductory level, kind of getting people the opportunity to at least observe in a teaching capacity. I'm not asking them to teach, but I'm
Yeah.
saying, hey, what critiques do you have? Will absolutely, not only does we call it calling, it causes buy-in. So somebody's now bought in, they're invested in every moment of the course. When if they hadn't been encouraged to pay attention at that level, they might just be like I said, literally looking at their feet. So by increasing the buy-in, you're increasing the person's presence of mind during the training. And I think that's really what teaching or being asked a question or being given the opportunity to give input does for a student. is it causes them to be more present for the rep. And presence of mind during training is what makes training valuable. You can go
Yeah.
to a training and zone out. It's like, fuck it, it's like I wasn't even there. So
No,
yeah, you're right. By having
Yeah.
those little moments, you absolutely increase that, I think.
Yeah,
and
I find that out
that's
during. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm sure you'll be able to chime in on this if this isn't what you were gonna say, but like during any kind of government training that I've gone through, as well as I'm sure you, like any sort of like standardized, like we gotta get 200 plus people through this module. Like what you get is a bunch of people kind of hiding at the back, just trying to like tick their boxes. Like, yeah, I need to understand this at some base level so I don't, fuck myself over. But ultimately, there isn't the time to be the hey, didn't we have homework guy? Like you're just there to tick a box and move on, and no one's interested if you actually retained anything, just that you showed up and did the thing. And that's like a really big difference, I think, between
Absolutely.
what people experience in the military, or I'm sure law enforcement, and these more like personable classes. But sorry, Nathan, what were you gonna say?
Absolutely.
Honestly, literally exactly what you
Yeah,
said.
I figured. I figured.
It's like you guys work together or something.
I know, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
And I
Yeah,
found
so
myself
that's
doing it.
been.
Yeah.
You just keep getting walked on, man. Go ahead, sir.
No, you're okay. Just like in the military, in school, in university, and like all the way back as long as I can remember, just like tuning out. And if I didn't care about something, I'd just like check the boxes,
Yep.
and
Yep.
like I would know how to emulate it, not actually understand the why, to be able to like understand the core concept and be able to recreate it. And that's something I actually appreciate, like giving the as you called it, the adult learning model. It works. It
Yep.
really does.
It
Like,
works.
and I see all these, and I hate it, like the macho male influencers and the courses they have and the things like that. And I've never ever had even remote interest in doing them. And I'll see footage from them, and it's like adult men yelling at people to like,
Hmm.
get in the fucking mud. So and so, like you're paying for a adult man to yell at you.
Yeah,
What are you
Yeah,
getting?
it's paying for a seal to pee on you in the surf thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And I had this is a little off topic, but I had a conversation in that vein today, sort of in that vein today with a young guy. This happens to me because I made the mistake of posting about relationships and being good to your wife and things like that, which is something that's basically rare as fuck apparently in this industry, is like being a decent
Jesus.
human being to women.
yeah,
So, and that's definitely true of law enforcement. We all know the jokes about beating your wives and stuff, and then of course the military as well. Those are stereotypes because they exist. So
yeah.
why is there a hypermasculinity involved in this stuff to the point that we are now demonizing masculinity across the board? So you said the macho man thing, right, Nathan? So
Yeah.
that's what clued me in. This guy asked. He said, I'm young. He's smack dab in the middle of puberty. I lift weights a lot, and I have trouble when my girlfriend says something dumb or she pisses me off. I get really angry and I feel like I can't control it. And I know that's like a man thing to do. It's male. I was like,
Mm,
maybe not. Maybe masculinity has a different context, and we put it in this strange context in this industry that we think that being a man means I have to be rough, I have to be gruff all the time, I've got to be the biggest dick in the room, I got to puff my chest out and thump it and talk shit about everybody else or do
yep.
crazy stuff to get attention. So I don't know necessarily why that happened or where it came from. Maybe we can blame like 80s action films,
Uh,
but that is something that we like try to do differently at OTG is presenting masculinity from our instructors and in classes to students as something a lot more effective than just like I want to I want you to pay me money so I can yell at you and kick you in the balls and surf and stuff.
yeah.
I don't think that's the real picture of masculinity at all, and that's a
Well,
big part of what is missing from the training industry or just from the gun industry, the t-shirt industry, whatever. Is that masculinity gets conflated with what are actually really weak traits, giving into
Yeah.
your emotions, being childish about everything, being emotionally unstable, stuff like that is we think that's being a man because we've got the wrong idea of what it actually is. So anyway, I
No,
know I just went all like way off there, but
No. It's totally okay. It's kind of actually relevant to what Faceless was saying the other day.
well, it's kind of been like honestly a running point of this podcast is like, there is this whole like, oh, because masculinity is being critiqued, we have to be this like gross
yeah, it's the Andrew Tate thing.
parody.
yeah, you have to be like the joke of masculinity that they're criticizing instead of like a positive like masculinity when it's done without ego and like all of the inflated bullshit that isn't actually masculinity as you describe it. It's very all of those weak traits that are like men who are just trying to act like what they think a man is instead of like a stable protector,
Exactly.
someone who can be respected, someone who like, you know, is open to critique and to be a better man, not just the loudest man. That is
Right.
so fucking lost on so many people because of dick measuring and because of like, we have this picture of a guy juiced up on God knows what and like, yelling at people smaller than him. That's masculinity. Like, no.
No,
The dude, you can be, you can be like a built fucking dude and still be a humble guy to, some like 100-pound soaking wet dude if he has an opinion that enlightens, your perspective on things. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. And I think sometimes we get mislabeled a little bit because of me, and I have been the victim of this myself, of memes, taking memes too seriously. So like on the Orion Concepts page, we do the post physique thing all the time.
yeah.
And that honestly sometimes does contribute to the toxic nature of things because people that have a decent opinion end up getting fat shamed. So now we're going to get into the fat shaming section of the show.
Hell yeah.
But I think that, masculinity is, it's not, you can't just put it in a box. And many of the traits that we would say are positive about a man would also be positive in a woman, right?
Yeah.
Being kind to people weaker than you, being gentle with, children and other people that you don't need to be rough with, being really rough when you need to be, not being afraid of doing the thing that needs to be done when it's difficult. If you told me that a woman was capable of all those things, I would also be like, badass. That sounds like a good woman.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we also characterize masculinity with a set of things that are universally good traits. But that's almost a different conversation. I think if we just look at what people say masculinity is, and then we say what it actually isn't, we get a better picture of what it should be. Guys like Andrew Tate that are like, bang as many women as possible, buy a fancy car,
Yeah. Treat people
maybe
like
do a
shit.
little sex trafficking. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's masculinity. We can say, well, it's definitely not that.
Yeah.
So I like to do the I think it's apathetic is the word for it. I don't remember. It's part of the theology in Eastern Orthodoxy, which I am not Eastern Orthodox, but they would rather say what God is not than what God is because it's a really hard concept to describe. I think that positive traits in a man it's easier to say what he's not than what he should be because it's such a broad topic.
Yeah, there's so many there are so many different kinds of men, and there are many different kinds of men that and I'm sure you guys too, by the sounds of it, would agree are masculine. Like a
Yep.
a confident, well-read guy that's not out splitting logs, but he is like, he's capable of raising confident children. He looks after his woman, and he like a dude that's capable of saying "I love you" to his son without feeling like he's gay for like giving
Exactly.
genuinely, that's fucking terrifying to me. Is a dude that would rather like never tell his son that he loves him because he thinks it'll make him tough. Like, good god, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But like,
Yeah, there's a lot wrong with the world, and I think sometimes it gets put in hyper focus in the gun and the training and the t-shirt and the whatever industry because people put some of their worst traits to the front in order to stunt on social media or whatever else.
Yeah. Well,
So
I think being a dick betrays a certain insecurity. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead. No, it's perfect.
Yeah. It's just like for insecure dudes that need to feel power over other people. Basically how they get their rocks off. I do think it is easier to be angry and more negative all of the time than actually be, the better person, the stronger person, and just like let things not bother you. Be kind to people. And you see it a
And
lot. And I'm really thankful for my friend groups now for not being like
Yep.
that. And, people like both of you who just aren't like that at all. But, growing up,
Well,
especially male friend groups, they relied a lot on like there has to be a power hierarchy of some
Yeah,
point.
there has
Someone
to
has to
be
be
a
the dick.
runt of the litter who gets shit on.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
Lord of the
like,
Flies, right? It's human nature.
yeah.
Yeah. And like, it doesn't have to be like that.
I would like to caveat this too.
Yeah, of course.
I'll tattle on myself for anybody listening to this. It wasn't like I came out of the cradle just, humble and able to say any of these things. I'm a huge asshole, and I have been for a long time. And I learned my lesson the hard way. Have we talked about me getting deleted off of Instagram for cyberbullying T-Rex arms in like
Yeah,
2019,
yeah.
2018?
I
Yeah.
think
Okay, I
in
thought.
our first episode.
Yeah. So I don't know, BR, you weren't around for episode 17, I don't think.
I've edited every single episode of the show. I just wasn't hosting at the time.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if you remember or not, because this is hundreds of, or 120 something ago.
Yeah.
But super long story short, I was selling T-shirts, and like I always say on Instagram, people start drama to sell products. Well, how do I know that works? I did it for like 2 years. And it did not ultimately, it did not make me a better person. It did not make me happy in the long run. It was so easy. Literally anything that Lucas said or did, I just trolled it, made a meme of it. I'm like, haha, he's skinny, or he has dubious religious background, or whatever it was, whatever I could find an ammo to pick at. And other negative people were like, oh hell yeah, someone's finally saying the thing I've been thinking. I'm gonna buy his T-shirt. So we built a T-shirt company out of nothing based on being negative about everyone else, and it didn't do me any good, to the point that it even got me in trouble at work, because the memes that we were making started to trend into like making fun of administrators, making fun of dumb choices that police departments make, and the people that I worked for were like, "Hey, that's me. You can't say that."
Fuck.
They didn't care when we were making fun of Lucas.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, fast forward a couple years, I'm in the training business. OTG's getting big, or bigger. It's growing rapidly enough that somebody like Lucas would notice. And he messages. This was in like 2021 or 2022. I don't remember. When was our first episode? When was episode 17?
Gosh, that.
Let me pull it up.
About 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay, so probably
we've been
22.
going about 2 years.
Okay, so somewhere around there, because I don't want to misquote it, and I don't know if Lucas listens to this or not, or if he would even give a shit. But
October
I was
2021.
Wow. So this October it'll be 3 years old.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yep.
So yeah, we had been around for maybe 10 months, and I don't know, I probably had like 20 or 30,000 followers, which is decent growth for Instagram. And Lucas was like, "Hey, I like what you guys do. You're one of the only people that train CQB for civilians. Can I recommend people to take your classes?" And I was like, "Oh, fuck yeah, man." But caveat, I don't know if you remember me, but I had a T-shirt company, and we built our business on trolling you. And I had to eat some humble pie, because he was like, "Well, I don't even remember you. I don't have time for that kind of stuff. I'm just glad that I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing now." And whether I agree with Lucas on a lot of things or not, and there's plenty of stuff that I don't, but that's big boy hours right there. You
Yep.
can't argue his logic, and you can't really add or take away anything from that. He was like, "Cool, thanks for the apology. I don't have time for that shit anyway. Keep doing what you're doing." That shows me that, one, he didn't let that bother him the first time it happened, and then two, now he's not holding grudges.
Yeah.
He's
He
just
could have
saying, "Hey,
just
you're
been
doing."
he could have just as well like ghosted you and been like, actually, nah.
Yeah, he could have crushed us, because he could have said, "Hey, remember those guys that trolled me? Unleash the minions," because he's got a cult following, and 'cause that's what happened before. Is enough of his followers reported us for bullying that, and Instagram went and looked at the the page and was
And they
like,
were
"Holy
like,
shit,
yeah, this
that's
is
bad. This is bad." Like my IP got banned. Like I can't even use that phone on Instagram.
No,
So
I've been there.
yeah. So that is a picture of masculinity, and Lucas is not what a lot of people would look at and go, "Oh, like he's a masculine guy," because he's thin, he's tall, he talks really fast, and all these different little things that he gets picked on about. But here I am sitting here after being a massive asshole, um, intentionally, and he was like, "No, dude, I'm not worried about that. Cheers."
I actually
That's
really
so
appreciate that. It is easier to be
Yeah,
negative.
yeah, and so that was a turning point. I had already been counseled by people like Jason who have, forgotten more than I ever have about how to build things and mentor people and whatever else. But he'd already told me like, hey, with OTG, we can't do that. We have to be positive. We have to build something good and not seek to tear others down. And that was in the back of my head, and it was governing what we were doing. But to see someone else at a much bigger company doing that to me directly when he had the opportunity to be much worse was humbling. Now, I mean, I know he does sell a lot of products based on things. So there's stuff like the whole ACOGs versus LPVOs debacle. He said ACOGs were the best thing ever because he had like 800 ACOGs to sell and hasn't talked about them since because he sold them all. So I wouldn't call that like stirring up drama. That's just him doing a good job of marketing whatever it is that he has to sell. In my case, if I was to say, hey, this other training company fucking sucks and they need to defend themselves about all the things they teach instead of just teaching what I teach really well and growing independently, that's what I would say is kicking up drama to sell tickets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that those are two really good pictures of like a masculine way to behave and a not so masculine way to behave as far as how you interact with other businesses in this space.
It's difficult to navigate because like, I think it's not necessarily always from a place of like like a bad actor. Sometimes people are genuinely concerned, not saying they're right or wrong, about like a product, a service, a person, whatever it
Oh,
might
for
be.
sure.
Yeah.
But
For
like
sure.
that's the thing is like because this especially this space because there's so much fucking testosterone going around here, it's very easy to like one guy jumps in trying to be like, hey, I think this might be dangerous, I think this person might be questionable, whatever it might be, and then other people just smell blood. And it doesn't matter if it's like it started as a hey, if we were going like a few degrees this way instead of this way, like you'd be golden. It turns into like a witch hunt, and it's
people are tribal.
They are because like
and we see this happen a lot. It's happened like 5 times in the last year with people that I'm like directly observing what's happening with them, and then all of a sudden just usually it comes out that they're a scumbag or they lied about something big, or they've tricked you or whatever else. And I've been pretty burnt. I've been burnt a couple times now where I bought somebody's bullshit. So
it's
you have
happened
to
to
be
us.
really wary. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's happened to a lot of people. So I think there's another side to this whole thing is a lot of the people that sell a lot of the snake oil are also lying to themselves. So we talk about like lying to the customer and making them buy something they don't need. That typically starts by lying to yourself. You have to be able to lie to yourself to lie to other people. Whether that's like your background is a lie or the efficacy of the tactics or where the tactics came from, in that regard. You'll have guys teaching something that is rather not true and they're saying they got it from another background. For example, and I don't want to dime this guy out per se, but this isn't like a gotcha thing, but it's no secret that I really don't like the tactics that Project Gecko teaches. You guys have you
after
guys
we
ever had him on?
No, we've never had him on. I'm not actually super interested in having him on. After we had your first episode, he blocked us. No, he
really.
Yep, he removed.
So I'm blocked as well, just for asking questions.
Yeah.
So
he
the
removed
reason
me from his from my
I see
personal...
why you got blocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But what were they doing down there, Nathan?
Yeah, Nathan. What were they doing?
I don't know. What were they doing down there? What were they doing? I just want to know. Was he teaching?
I want to know about the mattresses.
Just want answers.
The stained mattresses got me. But anyway, long story short, he claims that what he teaches is IDF Special Forces based stuff. But then when I go and talk to people that are IDF Special Forces, like, we don't fucking do that because it wouldn't work.
They don't do the head peeking?
No, because you'd be fucking shot in the face. But he claims that, and you talk to anybody that's actually like actively fighting in Gaza, and they're like, I'm not fucking sticking my head back out in the same place I just got shot at from. That's like basic tactics 101 is don't telegraph your position and then go right back to that spot.
Yeah,
After a sniper fires a couple rounds, they should move. Why?
Yeah.
Because everyone fucking knows where you are.
Not
So
to
the head,
actively shit on this guy too much, but is he like, was he the guy doing those videos of the peeking?
yes,
Oh my god.
yes. And we went and tested it. Like, our cadre was like, we're gonna fucking try this because we know it's bullshit, but I want to see what is he gaining about this that's gonna make it sellable in a class?
Did you guys do
Because
force
he
on
must.
force for that?
Yeah, so we did force on force, and we did it with permeable. We did it with permeable walls as well. And this is the thing about Eli's curriculum and a lot of curriculums that suffer. If you don't have a permeable wall, then you're not testing a real environment.
Yeah.
If you're only going to teach guys that are operating, like, for example, we've trained guys that only work in a nuke plant. The nuke plant, they have gun ports built into the nuke plant, so like they can lock a room from the outside, then shoot through a gun port into it to kill the bad guy. Shit like that. Like, the place is fortified, and they do peeking because they have 2-foot thick reinforced concrete walls. It's like shooting around a VTAC barricade. Well, that's not true of basically anywhere else.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that the environment that you're teaching in, or the environment that you're teaching for, has to replicate some level of reality. So if you do the peeking shit on a permeable wall and the bad guy is spooled up, he just shoots through the wall.
Yeah.
So you show your position, and again, the way Eli teaches it, you show your position. The primary first peek is to get your visual. With the gun, that's not even in play. The intention is the peek is so fast that you wouldn't even have time to shoot anyway. So you stick your head through the door with no gun, and then, because you've now surprised the bad guy and you know where he is, you peek your head back in with your gun this time to shoot. So the assumption is that the bad guy is so dumb or incapable that the first peek is not going to get you killed, and certainly not the second peek in the same place. And also that he can't or won't shoot through the wall. So on multiple levels, it's fucking stupid technique and would get people killed. And I have gone and I had asked this guy, like, bro, is there something I'm missing? Like, I would like to know more about this. And I would message or put it in the comments, and he said, well, you you just have to see it in person. You should just pay to come to a class and then you'll understand. So I have to give you money in order to understand it, when there's nothing new under the sun. It's either going to work or it's not. And if you can't defend one point of your curriculum in an Instagram comment, I don't know if I want to go, right?
Yeah.
The caveat is, I am not now going around and saying, this guy's an asshole, his program sucks, it's terrible, don't go to it, he won't come talk to me on Instagram Live, because it's not about me. I just want to build my curriculum and my company up and encourage people to get good training. And I want to talk about what works and why, not about everyone else and what they're doing.
I like that. You don't have to tear people down to build yourself up.
Right. And the truth comes out all the time, right? So people over time, he spiked in popularity because he did the UF Pro videos, and everyone was like, oh my God, CQB on the internet. And now there's enough people saturating the CQB space, guys like Fred from, Counting Coup.
I love
it's Fred Baker. I know we talked about him a minute ago, but he's now teaching CQB. He's done some open enrollment CQB classes. That is huge for the CQB world for civilians, because you've got a guy from the tip of the fucking spear teaching you something that is vetted from his experience, instead of some dude who's making shit up and saying it came from a certain unit, and then that unit is like, the fuck it is. That comes out on its own, and you don't have to do like a drama expose about it. You know what I mean?
No. And that's kind of like the good thing about things that can be measured to a somewhat objective degree, is like, either this shit works or it doesn't. And if there's no like citable, referenceable evidence that it's even like applicable, yet alone an actual thing, then you're a snake oil salesman, and it's not all that complicated to figure it out.
And that's why when you go and watch those videos demoing the peak, it's a rehearsed thing with a role player. It's not video of students in class using it, because you're not going to get good video because it doesn't fucking work. For example, we had a student who had been an avid consumer of this online content, and he just did a solo duo class with us this weekend. And he's like, hey, why aren't we switching shoulders? And I was like, well, because it doesn't work. We'll talk about it. And okay, why are we not double peaking at the same height? Well, it doesn't work. We'll talk about it. And we kind of go through the lesson and intrinsically show why it is or isn't good. And because it's a force on force class, you really only get 1 or 2 preparatory reps on paper targets. And then we're balls to the wall, right? You're getting shot, you're shooting people. His first rep, he goes back to what he's practiced at home and he peaks with no gun. And my role players are guys that we work with all the time. These are very well trained guys from our members club. And what we tell them is you have a 1.5 second timer from the first point you see a person. I don't care if it's their muzzle, the tip of their muzzle, the edge of their foot. You are counting 1001, and when you start the 1000 of 1002, you should be pressing the trigger. So what's the dude do? He peeks out, peeks away. He found the role player. He's getting his gun ready. He peeks back out, takes a BB right to the teeth.
Ooh,
because the role player was told, give him a 1.5 second handicap, which is a long time. That's not even realistic. It should be a 0.5 second handicap. Give them 6 times the human body's need to process, 0.25 or a 1/4 second, right? You're giving him a 1.5 second handicap, and you're still shooting him in the face when he does the double peak thing. So I would say, okay, index guys, let's talk about why you got shot in the face. And for anyone listening, obviously they're wearing force on force masks. He didn't really get shot in the teeth.
Yeah.
But, hey man, how did it feel to get shot in the soft tissue of your face? Your brainstem would be mush right now. Why did that happen? Can you tell me why that happened? He said, well, I didn't listen to you. I peeked back out twice at the same height, but I thought I could be fast enough because that's what they say on YouTube. It's like, okay, so what did we learn? He said, okay, I'm going to do what y'all teach now, and I'm going to peak from a different place. I'm going to peak low if I started high, or I'll bail and try to find another angle to get back to that guy, flank him, or whatever else. And so a few reps later, he peeks out high, fires this time because he puts his gun in play, misses because he was firing from his offside shoulder. So, hey, he switched shoulders to try and get a better angle. He doesn't shoot very well with his left hand and his left eye and his left trigger finger on his left side because he's right everything. So he misses. He bails back and he kind of settles himself. He peeks low and leans out and absolutely wastes the role player from the low position. And the role player knows to expect that and wasn't even considering that the dude was going to go low because he was trained in taking the slack out the trigger. So by changing your position instead of going back to the place you've telegraphed, you're more effective in that gunfight. And that is basic, like that shit goes back to when we were fighting with swords. Like, don't be in the same place twice. Holy shit. Don't drop your guard twice. And people just try to reinvent the wheel. And going back to the original topic of conversation, that needs to be exposed. But the way in which we expose it should be in person in classes, showing the real material and not for like online clout. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like,
yeah,
I think I discussed it last time we had you on, is like, if the primary motivation, and it should be for everyone in the training space, is to make the best rifleman possible, then we should all be willing, no matter what level we're at, to eat humble pie as much as it fucking takes to make the best rifleman around. And if that means scrapping your whole curriculum, like I've said this to as a marketing guy, to not just trainers, but like anyone with a brand, it is so much better to just be like, hey guys, I was wrong, or hey guys, I fucked up, whatever it is. Just eat the humble pie, eat the whole fucking thing, and be like, yep, we fucked up, we were wrong, we're gonna do things differently and better now. And if you do that, it doesn't matter what you do for a living, people will respect you so much more than just being like,
dude,
nah, I'm gonna plug my ears, keep on doing what I'm doing, and I will fight you tooth and nail on me being right always. Like, that's so fucking wrong.
That is so true, dude. That is so true. And I've given that advice out a few times in the last few weeks, and I wish that it had been taken. And it's just, it is what it is, man. People are going to do what they're going to do. And I really hope that collectively podcasts like this and companies with a mission like OTG, not to toot my own horn, can hopefully try to change some of that. But on the flip side, like I said, I don't want to collab with anyone ever again because I'm so burnt. So I think I'm just I'm just gonna come hang out on y'all's podcast and not ever do anything with anyone else ever again. How's that sound?
Yeah, well, it'd probably be
no
a good
comment.
idea to maneuver from that for financial reasons.
Oh my god!
All right, I knew you were gonna plug that. I knew you were gonna plug that some kind of way.
Okay, just as a joke, you can get rid of that, BR. Sorry, I had to make the joke at least once. I didn't want to actually pull it into this.
I am so, and whether this stays in or not, I am so fucking annoyed with that whole thing.
Yeah.
You can buy into what somebody is doing and even meet that person in person, shake hands, hang out, meet their significant others, kids, whatever, spend time in conversation with, attend meals, maybe even pray for, all that stuff, and then still be wrong about all of it.
And that goes into exactly what you were saying before, just like being able to admit, not just in like your doctrine, but being able to say like, yeah, I had the wrong impression of someone, because we've all done it.
Well, dude,
So.
I mean, like, with the whole, I admitted it on the ARA episodes, and I'll say it again now. Like, I sat down with Mark and had been talking with him extensively, and then it sucked to hear that the guys who had listened to me and were like trusted my interview with this dude, that this is the way we should be going with Citizen Rifleman, and this guy is an effective leader and he's advancing the culture. I believed all of that from my conversation with him in the and offline, and then to get so many reports back from people who, and like, it's a difficult space when you're trying to proliferate this stuff. Like,
how do you trust somebody, right?
Yeah, and especially in a space where we're kind of, not to get like way off topic, but kind of in that 1776, like in the pubs kind of part of conversation.
No, I agree.
Like, you can't
100%.
You can't audit every single person. You just, you trust your gut, and you trust that you're speaking to people with the best of intentions, especially when they, claim to no end they have the best of intentions. You're like, why would I disbelieve you? Like, I don't see any way for this to be motivated by greed or like, ill intent. And and then you find a way that there was grifting going on, you're like, fuck, man. Like, that sucks.
I can imagine everyone. You felt like, from what I could tell, you felt pretty betrayed, and I would too, in your shoes. And I like to think I've been pretty trusting in this community, and I haven't had the experiences you guys have had, thankfully, where it's like I put my trust in the wrong person, I ended up being a scumbag yet. But that kind of speaks, I think, to the community being mostly good people, I want to say.
Well, and that's the thing. If you have a community of people that are building this thing on trust, and then you have people come in and do shitty, untrustworthy things, there's a net negative to that.
100%.
I think. And so I don't know how you weed these people out. And I'll say this, because I never really got to say my piece on the ARA thing, because I kind of got, not to say bad mouth, but
I promise I didn't intend on this coming up. I'm sorry.
Dude, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. I think that, like we just talked about, one, you have to be able to admit your mistakes in public venues. And if you don't, people will assume that you haven't admitted it. So the opportunity to say something about it is probably a net positive for me, even if it means I have to say, like, hey, guys, I fucked up. The first thing I will say is that when you see something what appears really good happening, and like we said, in a community that is trusting like this, you want so badly for it to be real.
Yep.
And BR just said the same thing, right? Like, advancing the community, we're building things, we're doing this, we're doing that.
Hell yeah.
In the background, Mark had asked me for help on curriculum development, because he wanted to take the pattern of what he had said he was building and go big with it, and have other people that wanted to build the same type of thing have basically a plug and play manual. And that's something that we do. We do team consulting. So I was never paid by him or anything, but we had a couple conversations on the phone or audio. I do audio messages all the time because I'm so busy. So I'll just talk while I'm doing whatever else.
Yeah.
And
driving generally.
Driving. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's, I wouldn't actually do that if my FBI agent is listening, which I'm sure she is. I would never break the law. I hope you're doing well, Katie. So
is that illegal to record voice memos in the car while you're driving?
No, I don't think so. As long as it's not a hand-free zone like a school zone.
I was going to say I wouldn't have outed you like that. I mean, obviously you've never done it, but sorry, continue.
I would never have broken the law. Yeah, I would never do that. Ever for any reason. Agreed. As I look at my big stack of pipe, just kidding. I've never made those either. Anyway, thankfully I don't have any dogs. They're not at risk. I've talked to this dude enough that I believed what he was saying and didn't have a reason not to and include that when he came to tour the HTA range day, which Dylan puts on up at in Pennsylvania. And that was because he wanted to tour the facility. Allegedly, he wanted to tour the facility to use it for training for the ARA. And he's like, hey, I'm going to be up there. I'm like, oh, sick. I finally get to meet this guy in person. Well, this is like a month before all this shit hits the fan, right? So, he comes to my little course that I'm teaching for the HTA range day, shakes my hand. He watches us teach for a little bit. He tours the shoot house with the owner. He goes about his business. And, I got to meet him in person, him and one of his other leaders, and didn't get any bad vibes or whatever else.
Yep.
And stuff slowly starts to coming to the surface. And that was like, what was that, like October, November timeframe?
Something like that,
yeah. And he doesn't know this, and I don't remember if I told him or not, but I'm out of town in Boston with a family member that's having to have a bunch of major surgeries, and I'm like taking time off of work and shit. And he is texting me about all the stuff that's going on. And I had caught wind, and this is what really got my hackles up. I don't do the rumor thing. I don't do the internet rumor thing. I have been the subject of the internet.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to not jump on a bandwagon and then have to say, sorry guys, I joined the mob and I was wrong, than it is to say I never participated in the mob. And now that I know that they were right, okay, I understand. But I find that often the mob mentality of trying to burn someone, like you talked about, people smell blood.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's wrong. And I have actually been the subject of that, where we were accused by another training company of some pretty serious stuff. And it turned out that it was a complete lie. And I even have like actual physical proof that it was a lie, but it still lost me contracts with agencies. It lost me customers and stuff. And you'll still occasionally hear those rumors floating around here and there. And just absolutely silly stuff that is completely not true. And it's because of the rumor mill and the cult mentality of some of these groups. So when I see other people getting blasted, my first inclination is there may be a motive to this, so I'm going to hang back. So that's how I took it initially. But what got my hackles up about Mark was that someone told me that they didn't think he was really ever a cop. And being a cop for the last 9 years now, I'm like, that's really verifiable. That's basically the hardest thing possible to lie about.
Yeah,
because
makes it a really interesting thing to lie about.
Correct. Yeah. So the guys that I know in the ARA, I asked a few of, hey, how long has Mark been a cop? And they all gave me different answers.
Yeah.
So that means he's telling people different amounts of time, which means he's not tracking his lie. So I called his former agency and gave him all of his aliases and all of this to see if they could get, and they said, we've never heard of this dude. We have no idea who you're talking about.
Fucking hell.
And that was right around the time, within about 24 hours of that all coming out. So I told some of the guys in it that I knew, I was like, hey, I just verified that's an absolute lie. And they were like, what the fuck? And they left the group, and then it just exploded.
Yeah.
So for me, having told people, hey, go look at this group, they're doing good things, they have a good template, that's a fuck up on my end. Same as what you said. How could you really know?
Yep.
But you still should own it. But what really annoys me, and it's not something to even apologize for, it's just when everyone was jumping on this train of just absolutely shitting on the ARA as an organization, I felt that the focus should be shitting on Mark and getting Mark out, and not on the entire organization. And I felt that the method with which it was taken down was kind of like using a nuke instead of a scalpel. And because I did not jump in to contribute in the destruction of the entirety of the organization, people labeled me as a supporter of Mark, which I think is an unfair thing. Rather, it's just when you're the voice of reason to the French Revolution labels you as a tyrant, right? So it's like, hey guys, I agree. We should not have liars leading, national militias. However, maybe the way we go about getting rid of scumbags is not just burning the entire thing down.
Yeah.
And that I think a lot of people took that and ran with it, thinking that means like, oh, OTG supports, Mark and his lies, which is completely not true. I was in the background going to vet what was happening on my own, found out the lie before it even hit the internet, and was like, holy shit, and told people that were in the organization, you need to get the fuck out because it's about to explode. So anyway, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to not only say
No,
I'm
of course.
sorry I ever recommended that organization, but that's an explanation of sort of my actions in the background of what was
Yeah.
going on, and the reason you don't see me on any of these posts trolling or making fun of the ARA as an organization, because I think it really could have been something good, and
Yeah.
the model with good leadership I think would still function well.
100%.
As kind of a receipt for what you said, I remember the day that you did find out, like the day that you did the looking into his background and finding out that he wasn't who he said he was. You called me and you're just like, Nathan, this is what happened. As a heads up, like this is going to go public. This is what I did. This is how I know he's a liar. And like you told me exactly what you just said, which I imagine you did that with other people as well. But you did your due
Yeah.
diligence. You had receipts, so I appreciate that, and I don't think you can be faulted for that. I am pretty happy to hear that a lot of the ARA stuff is continuing, just under different names.
Yeah, and
I haven't checked up on
Yeah.
that in a little while, so it's good
I
to see
mean,
that the organization didn't collapse with Mark disappearing.
yeah, like I don't know if there is still any component of it that calls itself the ARA, but like, I interviewed a
There's
good
not.
yeah, I interviewed a good number of like leaders and guys with leadership potential or capability. And, one of the big questions I asked all of them was like, do you think with different leadership this could continue? And they're like, not as the ARA. Like the reputation, it's been soiled, like it needs to be someone else. And that's,
Yep.
it made sense. And I'm glad those guys didn't just say like, oh well, fuck it, like that's over. They've continued to do similar things, but with a bit more of a decentralized mindset. Not really the we want to be Boy Scouts of America for adults, which I I'm not saying that to shit on that idea because I fucking love that idea as a way for fucking society to function. It just needs to
Yep.
be done without ego and kind of plugging back into that conversation about masculinity where you're like, you eat humble pie every day as a leader. You don't rule with an iron fist. You rule with I can always do better and my guys always deserve better of me. And
Yep.
that is the solution. It's as simple as that. Like leaders are
100%
not
agree.
tyrants.
Yep, 100% agree, and I think that there's one of my favorite phrases is shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
So if you got a guy up top shitting, it ruins the whole hill, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that with any good organization can be ruined by one bad egg at the top, especially.
Yeah.
And as a civilian entity outside of government regulations, we have to hold ourselves to a certain standard because one, the government is not held to any fucking standard,
Yeah.
right? But people act like they must be morally superior when the reality is they could give a fuck because no one's holding them accountable. So with still the threat of government scrutiny, we have to be extremely accountable and responsible to what we're doing, especially if we're going to put it all over the fucking internet like the ARA was.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was another of my concerns was like, hey, we're airing out our dirty laundry in such a public way. This is going to cause an issue. And I know there's this whole thing about the militia training ban that they're talking about, the anti-paramilitary act or whatever it's called. And I've been getting a ton of questions like, how is this going to affect you guys or whatever? One, I don't think it's going to pass at all.
I fucking hope not, because there's no way it would pass constitutional muster, but it is still a worrisome thing.
Yeah, like, obviously talking from the black flag perspective, like I say this like as a fact, you will never stop that shit. Like you can
No, that's going to make people train even harder is what
yeah,
that's going to do.
and rightfully so. But
Agreed.
like just getting to a point where you could, like and I don't mean this in a fear-mongery way, but feds be fedding. Like if you can roll up and smoke some guys for resisting arrest because they're just out on a hike with rifles and packs, like that's the end of everything people know and love as America. Like if that
Exactly.
is the point we get to where that is completely enforceable to lock guys up for doing something they 100% should be doing, like practicing with your bow and sword on Sunday, like it's done, guys. It's absolutely fucking done.
And so you often get this question, and whether it's a Fed in your DMs or not, and then people say, "Hey, we have the Second Amendment. When's it time to start using it?" I don't know, because our parents allowed, the '90s assault weapons ban. Our parents complied with the 10-round mag limits and capacities and stuff that happened. They didn't freak out, and we ended up getting those rights, quote unquote, back, or whatever you call it. But when you start to get to the point that you're banning the almost word for word intent of the Second Amendment, you have to ask yourself, and this is true of anything, what is the intent behind this? They're not even veiling it. That's not even a sucker punch.
No.
That is just, we're going to make being a militia illegal.
Yeah.
That's it. And whereas our Constitution calls for one, and not only calls for it, but it calls for it to be well regulated. And that regulation does not come from the government. It comes from the people within the militia, which goes back to that. We have to be highly accountable to the quality of what we're doing, especially if we're going to put it in the public eye. So, and I'm not trying to draw a conclusion that, smoking the ARA in public made somehow this law happen. If anyone's listening to this and thinks that's what I'm saying, I don't think it had that serious of a connotation. I think that this bill has been a long time coming, and they're labeling it as basically the anti-January 6th thing.
Yeah.
Which, if you think January 6th was an insurrection, you're a fucking pussy.
Yeah.
That's what we should. That's how that should be, looked at. And I actually had a Fed in my comments who was, that's not even a joke. He was a 25-year wildlife and fisheries agent, and he was critiquing the CQB that we were doing, because he said on the wildlife and fisheries TAC team, they do peekaboo. They do the gecko peekaboo. And I was like, that's probably because you've never done an actual raid in your fucking life, or been shot at. And he tried to go off about how, his experience was legitimate and this and that. And he got pissed off and ended up saying, "Well, I bet you were at January 6th. Maybe we should look at your data and see."
Oh, I hate this.
He outed himself. He outed himself. Pussy.
I was like, we should fucking bridge, is what I thought in my head. But the reality is, there are people out there who have spent 25 years working for the federal government, and when they lose an argument online, they threaten being jailed for resisting the king type of thing. Oh, you happen to be at a rally for the other party that's not currently in power, maybe we should jail you. And he's doing this in Instagram comments.
Yeah.
So there are people who really, they don't think that it's actually a possibility that it could get to the point where, like you just said, the feds roll up on you because you and your buddies go hiking with rifles and you're labeled an insurrectionist, and they get in a gunfight with you, or they try to arrest you. And obviously, if you resist at that point, you're an armed resistor. So it's not a hard leap to take, if this law gets passed, that people that have mindsets like that fucking guy actually go try to do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
100%. My mind jumps
like
to like the remember
my mind jumps to Randy Weaver.
Yeah, Randy Weaver, great example.
My mind jumps to Wolverines. Like, I'm going to be in the mountains, and you can come fucking get me.
Yeah,
you know what
up.
I mean?
Well, you can't really stack up on a mountain, but,
on a tree.
No, and hey, bro, 556 goes through everything out here. 308 goes through everything out here and some.
Yeah.
Try if enough people said, and it would not be that many people if we look at what Lawrence of Arabia says in the book, The Seven Pillars of Wisdom. All you need for a successful rebellion is 2% of the population, with the 98% of the people just being silent.
Yeah.
I don't need your help. I just don't need you to rat me out. And 2% of a population can overthrow a fucking empire. So I'm not saying that's what we need to happen, right, in Minecraft. But
of course,
the point that I'm making is, I think they've never done anything wrong. But if you were going to have that law passed and innocent people got killed for some bullshit, I think a lot more than 2% of Americans would be upset enough to resist that with arms. And I think that's what people don't understand. The people that are trying to pass these laws are playing chicken with the wrong motherfuckers, is what I think it is.
They really fucking are. Like, we're at a point now, and it's something like that has not to get into tinfoil hat territory, but you see it.
Oh, I'm about to get into tinfoil hat territory.
Okay,
but I'll wait till you're done. I'll wait till you're done.
You can take the tinfoil off your leftover Peking duck and put it on your head.
Yes, that's the best way. The grease helps. The grease helps.
The swan, yeah.
but blocks those 5G waves.
That's right.
But like the military has been turned from a bunch of like, you know, the war on terror effectively required like everything right-wing America had to offer, like in terms of their youth and their health. And now the military has been turned into like a very compliant, like order following lot, like, you know, majoritively through the mandates and all that kind of thing. Like, this is a very different population to the people who were heading to war like 20 years ago. And I'm curious, like, I obviously have some pretty hardcore biases about law enforcement, but I'm curious if that has been like what the population of law enforcement looked like prior to the mandates, and if it has changed, or like, is it a bunch of order followers to the T, or like, you have any insight
so
on
that's
that?
going to be so that's a great question, and I think a lot of people listening would get something out of that. So law enforcement is different in the military, different than the military in the sense that you're still working in your own backyard.
Yeah.
Right. There are guys who went overseas and didn't have a problem, muzzle thumping an Iraqi kid because they were like, "Fuck him, I'm going home in 6 months."
Yeah.
You do that here, you deal with those people every day. So there's a certain level of I don't want to shit where I eat that can happen.
Yeah.
So for example, elected officials like a sheriff in Louisiana, for anybody not listening, not that's listening has not been to Louisiana or understand Louisiana law, the sheriff, per the constitution of the state, is the premier law enforcement in his jurisdiction, to and include going over the federal government. So the feds will operate in Louisiana without asking permission, obviously, but typically if you want something done, you've got to talk to the sheriff. Otherwise it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
So a lot of sheriff's offices down here, when the CDC was going door to door and bothering the piss out of people who do not like, mandates and things like that.
They were going door to door?
Yeah, they were going door to door to get data on censuses and stuff like that. Hey, do you have the shot? Have you been sick? And all this kind of, oh yeah. CDC did that door to door in a lot of places.
Dude, I
and
hate
law
that. I did not
enforcement.
know that.
Yeah.
So look up CDC door to door COVID census.
Wow.
And a lot of law enforcement down here kicked them out. They would get called and say, "Hey, there's a guy here claiming to be from the CDC. He's on my doorstep, and he's banging on my door. He wants me to sign this piece of paper or whatever." And eventually, it got to the point where they had like no-go zones because law enforcement would arrest them. Typically, didn't enforce. We didn't see any enforcement of mask mandates down here, but that's because there's a different culture. So the law enforcement culture will often reflect the culture of not only the politicians but the people that elect them. In places like New York and California, where you have a major separation in law enforcement from the will of the people, you had NYPD arresting little old ladies for not putting their masks on.
Yep.
And that is why we don't train New York NYPD. We don't go to the state of New York. We don't train in New Jersey, California, some agencies in Washington, most of the federal government. We don't train Canadian military law enforcement, and so on and so on and so on and so on, because they have a history of not giving a fuck what the people in their jurisdiction want.
Yeah.
And they just follow the rules because they say, it's just my job or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Whereas in, more rebellious places or southern places, typically you see that not happening. So I think that law enforcement is far too diverse, and there is too much of an influence from the will of the people to compare it to the military in the sense of, did COVID weed people out? However, and this is actually what I was going to say to your point, law enforcement has been being systematically dismantled just in general. And we saw that starting around 2014, 2015 with the defund the police trends.
Yeah.
It wasn't because they want to not have police and they want to move to a utopia where people are nice to each other. It's because they want federal police forces. Because the argument is, hey, local cops are not trained, they're not held to a standard, it's subpar, they don't have the resources the federal government does. So if we push for people in urban centers that are disenfranchised or the marginalized people, push for them because they have a huge social clout, special interest groups, to defund the police, and then who ends up stepping up? The federal government does.
Same
and
thing
now
in
you have
Canada.
a federal police force. Exactly. Yep. So now you have a federal police force that definitely doesn't fucking care about what you want because they're not elected. They're a bureaucracy that's appointed by a federal person that has nothing to do with your local jurisdiction. So if we remove the local reciprocity that comes from pissing where you sleep or shitting where you eat, now we can do whatever we want, and there's no fear of reprisal because it's the same thing as having a deployed military in a foreign nation. You just take a fed from Washington, D.C., and you put him in Florida. He doesn't give a fuck about Billy Bob. Yeah. Versus it's a cop who grew up with Billy Bob and knows, like, that motherfucker has landmines. I'm not going to piss him off.
That is horrifying, and that's actually how it works in Canada. Like,
yes, it's literally following the Canadian model. So, we haven't had a Nazi come through Congress with a standing ovation yet, but I think I don't know if y'all saw that.
The Ukrainian veteran who no one checked what he was a veteran of. We talked about that.
Literally the Waffen SS. That was fucking.
Yeah. Fuck me, Canada.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I don't really understand. Sometimes it can be really funny, but there's a trend in the community towards like super hardcore right wing stuff, or even Nazism. There are people in like this space, and I don't know if it's like dog whistling or if it's feds planting those seeds, and some autistic kids are just like running wild with it. But I don't think
it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B in my honest opinion, because I've seen people who are like, clearly this isn't your interest, you're just seeding, and then I've seen people who are fucking just way too autistic and susceptible, who they changed what their core ideology was 3 times in the span of a year because of what the headlines were telling them, and like it's
because of what was cool,
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't think the solution, no pun intended, the final solution to our political problem is not Nazism, guys. If you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, the good guys lost or whatever other bullshit, I think that probably it doesn't matter what form of government you have, it's going to be evil. And there's not a way to make a form of government good. It's just a question of how much government are we willing to put up with and how much responsibility versus accountability are we going to give them. Government has a lot of responsibility right now. No accountability at all. And if you go to fascism, you maximize responsibility to the point that they tell you what to do at your work. And there is no responsibility. There's no accountability because they took all your guns and put you on a registry. So I cannot wrap my head around an American teenager saying that he thinks the Nazis were the good guys. And maybe it's because I was homeschooled and like growing up, I wasn't allowed to watch a movie unless it was about Jesus Christ or John Wayne killing Nazis. But like, look, the uniforms are cool. The machine guns were cool. Everything about the aesthetic. I mean, Hugo Boss, I still wear his suits. Like, they look like bad motherfuckers, right?
Yeah.
But they lost. They fucking lost. And it's because it was not a sustainable thing. And I don't know if there is a totalitarian regime that has ever lasted.
Yeah.
Ever. Right? We all put Alexander the Great on a pedestal. And the reason that it didn't work is because he built a dictatorship. And when he died, there was no system.
Yeah.
Right? He died of AIDS or whatever. And it fucking exploded. Right? So the whole like, oh, well, the good guys lost. That's fucking stupid. Are there some funny trends or memes that come out of it? Sure. But then you have the flip side. You have all the fucking communist flag kids that think that some other comrade is going to dig the hole. They're going to be the glorious leader.
Oh god, I love the memes. It's like, well, oh god, the Twitter threads back in the day. It's like, what will you be post revolution? I'm going to be a poet that sometimes on weekends I will be a barista. And it's like, no, you're digging the fucking hole.
Dig the fucking hole.
You're gonna die of fucking starvation.
Yeah.
Right. You were a twink before the revolution, and you're gonna die a twink afterward because they're not gonna feed you.
It's like, what happens after most revolutions? They kill all the academics and the ideologues. This has been true all through history.
Yep, they will use people in a westernized society or a non Soviet style society to plant those seeds, and they kill those people later.
Yeah,
because those are the people who feel betrayed.
Yeah.
And to go back to racism a little bit, to pick on your people just a little bit more, Nathan. Chinese history is like, ping pong was elected to dictatorship. 250 million dead.
Yep. That's
it
actually
never goes well.
A little bit of a personal anecdote. My family fled from that. That's
From
actually
right, and
how they
now
all
they want to bring it to Canada. Right, right, and now they're like, let's do it again, but this time with Round Eye. It makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
So I know we're getting way off into the weeds here. We started totally talking about.
No, you know what, Jared? It's beautiful. We started on racism, and we're gonna end on racism. And
that's right.
That's
right.
If you take anything home from this,
it all circles back to what color you are, guys. No, just kidding. No, I think that again, just like how government will always be evil. Well, why is that? It's because it's run by people.
Yeah.
And I think the base nature of people is typically self-serving and bad. Then you put them in groups and tell them you're in charge. Well, what are they going to do? Be self-serving and bad. So, and that's why we have so many bad actors in law enforcement and so many shitheads in the military. It's literally just humanity, but you gave them responsibility for other people.
Yeah.
And then no accountability.
And then at some point you forgot how to hold them accountable. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is so true of far right and far left. And I don't even know what you would call America right now because it's a republic trying to be a democracy. But
a fucking oligarchy.
Yeah.
It's really just it's as soon as we determined, and I forget the Supreme Court ruling, but as soon as we determined that corporations had the same rights as people, we were fucked.
Yeah.
It's over. Because now it's all run by corporations.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this and you find out later that I shot myself, in the back of the head twice, it's all true, man. Yeah, it's the angle is perfect. Don't read into it. I beat myself to death in a dumpster.
Yeah. Hung yourself, shot yourself 5 times in the chest and head.
Right, like the 98 people on the Clinton list or whatever, they all killed themselves by like brutally beating themselves to death or whatever. My wife's probably in the other room, like Jesus Christ, they're gonna burn our house down.
God.
Yeah, every time she listens to one of these, like
putting a new life insurance policy on you.
Yes, she got one actually after I started this company. She was like, I don't know how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
So she put a life insurance policy on me. But anyway, yeah, I would say that the solution. We talked about negativity and how negativity is easiest. We talked about how not having accountability is easy, right? Everyone else is wrong but me. Everyone else sucks. That's the same truth involved in the solution to all these problems. And I don't know how we fix that because being a fascist isn't it, being a socialist isn't it. The problem with republics is that they become oligarchies. So I don't know what the solution is because the problem is human nature. You know what I mean? And that problem is, like we talked about, it's reflected in the training industry. It's reflected in the anything that people are involved in the church, right? It's a fucking shit show because people are running it. So I don't know. We got really deep there for a minute.
No, dude,
I like that. I like that.
It comes down to the primary problem, I think, and I don't want to be a dead horse, but it's masculinity, and it's young dudes who, even if you had like a great father figure, well, I'd say no. It probably stems from not having a great father figure. Honestly, it's guys looking for a daddy. Like a lot of the time, it's and not saying it's always that, but because you can have a great dad and then still think that you need a fucking Führer or like a better comrade to lead me. It's like, dude,
a former SEAL to yell at you and piss on you. You pay $2,000.
No, it's all of those things. It's always seeking out a daddy, and like the horrible, god awful truth that every adult needs to come to reason with is that no one's coming to save you. It's you. Like, do not expect rescue, and that like expect to self-rescue, and that's not just like tactical gray man shit. That is living your fucking life, making sure your children and your family are safe, and that your community, your friends, your network are safe and secure. Is like you can't expect a dad a better man to look after all of those things for you. It comes down to you, and it comes down to making a network of people who also value all of those things and also put in the time to make sure they're secure, and then spread as much of that excess as they can and help out people. Not fucking, throwing out bags of cash to everyone, but like, sort yourself
Yeah.
out and then help out the man next to you as best you can, and keep on sharing that as much as you can. Like that's really it. And like, whether that's like there's a very godly way to look at it from that perspective, and there's a very human way to look at it. It's just like, we're social creatures. We gotta look after each other and be as good as we can be to each other, and self-police when people don't have that in their heart, because it might not be like stupidly obvious, but we can sense it. We have gut instincts for those things, and it always comes up. It always comes to the surface when people don't have that as their number one intent. And like, to get down off my soapbox, hold us accountable. If you ever see me and Nathan like going for the bag, no, I'm dead fucking serious. If you ever see us saying like, "Hey, you guys should buy all the Olights you can," or like not even something as surface level as that. Like if we start propping people up, we have no fucking business propping up. Like, fucking call us out. Hold us accountable.
Yes,
Off my
I
soapbox.
agree.
And I absolutely agree. I actually really like it when like I put up that pistol shooting guide. The way that I learned how to shoot a pistol 12 years ago, and someone put in good advice. It's just like, hey, how about you, like, super friendly, how about you try stacking your grip like this? I did it. I shot better. It was great. Verified it through other sources. Went back and I fixed the guide and re-uploaded it. It's like, I love that shit. We are always learning. We're always like knowledge in general is constantly changing and evolving, and tactics and all of these things are being built upon and built upon and built upon. We are humble enough to be able to say when we were wrong. We're actually the most humble people you'll ever meet. We're so good at it.
We're so fucking humble. We really crushed.
Yeah.
Humble.
I'm actually writing a book about my humility. And how I achieved it, in case anyone wants to buy that. But I agree, and I think that there's a clear difference in when you observe the industry.
Yeah.
People that seek out constructive criticism or advice, and people who shut it out. And you'll see those people continue to improve, whereas you see other people kind of like be stagnant. We had some guys from third group, and just happened to bump into them. We were teaching at a DoD site in Indiana, and they were teaching a partner force. So people from like outside the country were there as well, and they were teaching them. And we kind of crossed paths leaving the shoot house, and they were like, "Oh, you guys are doing a contract for this law enforcement team. Can some of us watch? Because we never get to see cops do CQB." And so this group of it's like 10 dudes from third group on the catwalk watching, and I'm like, "Oh fuck, my asshole's tight." I don't want this to look bad, because I've got dudes with the funny green hats watching. Man, it's cool. I watched the John Wayne movie growing up. I know how cool this is. So afterward, they're like, "Man, that was really cool to see. We have some input on what you might want to change or improve on based on this, this, and this." And I'm like, "That's really insightful. Just in 20 minutes of you watching something, I'll talk about it to this team." And then that led to a friendship with a couple of these guys, and they actually came down to Louisiana and watched some of our courses, and sort of helped assist and instruct here and there. And they gave us some really, really good pointers on structuring the flow of the material, because Green Berets their job is to teach people that don't speak English how to be hitters, right? Their job is to train guerrillas, which I'm not saying we train guerrillas, but what we're doing is a lot more similar to what they do, teaching people that are new to a topic, than it is any sort of military pipeline. And so they gave us a few pointers on how to make the curriculum flow for a compact class, and it changed the way we teach. And if we just said, "Fuck you, we know what we're doing," we would still be teaching something much more poorly. It was still a good curriculum, but their input really helped. So it's probably a lot easier to take humble advice from a bunch of Green Berets than it is some random person on the internet that you don't know. But
you
get the point
probably
that
know
I'm
what
making.
you're talking about. No, absolutely.
Right.
But it, to like stack onto that, like, it's basically anyone's opinion is at least worth hearing, like, regardless of where they come from. And then like there's natural filters where, like, it'll make sense to discount, some guy called like Ralph 420 on Instagram critiquing your footwork compared to like a Green Beret. Like you can probably say like,
Right.
yeah, this guy's probably not like shit hot.
Ralph 420
I don't know.
An anime profile picture or a Greek statue, one of the two.
It's like none of this would work, and you're like,
yeah, I should probably consider that. Yeah. I mean, and it was one of those things where the input was so simple that I was like, I'm dumb for not doing that. We were basically switching people on stations between center and corner fed rooms back and forth, and he was like, they haven't learned one of them, and you're trying to make them learn both at the same time. Why don't you just do like 5 hours of center fed and then 5 hours of corner fed, and then the next day put them together? I was like, fuck. I should have thought of that, but we had to go back and rewrite 2 of our courses because of that. And people that took the courses back to back over the course of like 8 months apart were like, damn, this was like a whole different class because their brain didn't have to switch back and forth.
Yeah.
And imagine trying to teach somebody that shit that doesn't even speak English and you're having them go back and forth.
Why am I doing both?
Yeah.
Right. So it's shit like that where I'm like, wow, that was really insightful. But because I've, like when you play the piano or you did a drawing, I'm sure Nathan will stare at something he's drawn for hours and somebody else will look at it and go, why is his hand like that? And he's like, fuck me, I should have seen that, So
no,
I think it's just right. in all things, it's important to get outside info at least. Like you said, everyone's worth hearing out at least once. Some people, after they say their first piece, you're like, nope, blocked.
I will never open that DM ever again.
Right. Yeah, like the guys we talked about before we were recording. I'm very wary of when I receive a photo now in DM and it's not someone that I talk to. I'm like,
it's probably going to be balls or feet.
Yeah. Yeah. Or in this case, someone shoving something down their asshole and asking me to draw it.
I shouldn't have talked about that. Gonna happen now.
$20 is $20, gents.
Dude,
hey man,
someone came up to me. I'm not going to dox you, friend, who's probably listening to this. At the meet and greet in Fayetteville, and showed me a picture of him illuminating his balls was an X300. I just look at him; he's got the biggest fucking shit-eating grin in his face. Yes.
I mean, having done that, it's actually an interesting study.
I think every man should point with a light at some point.
If you have not put a flashlight through your bat wing, are you even living?
These are the important questions.
To his credit too, he also held it in a way to like maximize the roundness and the tautness of the skin. It wasn't just the bat wing. Like
you're like, am I looking at a fertilized chicken egg? They're like, no, bro.
Yeah, it was
like roundness and the tautness of the skin.
Yes, you could see the little things like floating around in there. These
are the words of an artist.
So again, not to bring it back to racism, but like
we got to end on it, so let's hit it.
French and Italian DNA, like that's a lot of hair going on with that.
Yeah.
Like, is that the same for Asian people?
I got my dad's side. My dad is very European, so yes, I unfortunately.
What flavor of European is he?
I don't fucking know. White.
You all look the same to me. What the fuck do you mean? There's a difference.
It's just like the usual like French, Italian. No, not Italian. No Italians here.
That's not usual.
Like French.
No, Italians like the Mexicans of Europe. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. Oh, you mean Italian and French people?
Yeah.
Good food, terrible everything else.
No, apparently the white side of my family were British loyalists that escaped during the at the end of the war for independence. And
they would be so disappointed in you.
Yeah, when my dad told me that, I'm like, well, that's a fucking shame. And he didn't talk to me for like a week. He was very...
That's hilarious, man. That's something no one talks about either, is the War of 1812. And like we're all like, yeah, we kicked the British out. They came back 30 years later and burnt our fucking capital down. So I mean, like, there's some stuff going on there. We don't, we only pick the cool parts. Like,
hey, I mean, honestly, like, I kind of fuck with the Brits during the War of 1812. Like, good on you, lads. I wish I could do that now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
different reason.
They made some points. They had some points.
They had the right idea.
That if we thought about the reality of someone invading America and burning our capital down right now, like think about the severity of what that would take.
Yeah.
And put that into the frame of mind. Yeah, and what the response would be like. I mean, like 9/11, we had, a unified America afterward because everyone was like, oh, God damn it, go get the ragheads or whatever. And it was people we went after weren't even fucking involved, right?
Yeah.
But the point that I'm making is like a major tragedy like that unites people.
Yeah.
So, and this is again, we've almost ended like 8 times. But what is it going to take to unite people in that way to stop the things that we have continuously happening that are overstepping? Because an attack on, killing 3,000 civilians in a tower and a horrific death, whether you believe our government did it or knew about it or not, obviously the intended result happened if that's what you think.
Yeah.
If you think it was just a random terror attack that, we have no blame in, I think you should probably read a book. But the point that I'm making is it unified America for at least 5 to 10 years. And 1 million Iraqis died because of that.
Yeah.
It bought
So
the
what
Empire
would
some
it
time.
Right. So what would it it's kind of like in Star Wars, right? Luke Skywalker is a terrorist. He killed 1 million people
Yes,
by
he
blowing up
did.
the Death Star. They call him a terrorist in the new movies, which I think is a really interesting choice by Disney to use modern framework,
Yeah.
because Lucas in his interviews talks about that. He says, "Yeah, I would absolutely say that the rebels are terrorists. They're like the Mujahideen.
Yeah.
They kill the establishment in order to usurp its tyrannical rule and establish something more positive, which is what every freedom fighter thinks they're doing." So, what does it take for average American people to wake the fuck up and go, holy shit, I am having to take 200 shots a year. I am having to do X, Y. I pay 40% of my fucking income to the government. Now they want to make it illegal for me to even train in my backyard, which is constitutionally mandated. Like, how much does it take for people to really go, you know what, I'm not fucking doing that? I'm not saying take up arms and burn the fucking Capitol down, but what I'm saying is the intensity of the reaction to mass catastrophe is there, but the slow degradation of your rights and your way of life, nobody seems to pay any attention to. And I think that is by design, So
it's Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I'm sure you've read it. I'm sure both of you have read it.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that can be drawn from things like that. We won't get into all the other books. We could go down such a fucking rabbit hole. This is what I'm reading right now, that everyone should probably read. Of course, people aren't watching this. I'm dumb. How to Think About War, which is a modern translation of the histories of the Peloponnesian Wars by Thucydides. And it is basically how wars start and why wars start, and then how foreign policy works. And it talks about rebellions and state-on-state wars, because you have all the Greek islands were forming these little balkanized city-states, and then they're fighting each other over dumb bullshit when they should have been uniting. And I have to wonder. We were talking about this at dinner the other day. Me and my wife were talking about, like, if something happens to the U.S., is it going to balkanize? It's going to split into a bunch of little countries. How does that go? That's not what anyone talks about. All the goon bros, like, oh, apocalypse, bro. They don't ever talk about how shitty it will be to be somebody caught in the middle of a fucking civil war on 2 fronts.
Yeah.
And have to actually deal with the consequences of fighting a conventional force in your homeland. That's bad. That's so bad.
Yeah.
Oh man.
At like a scale that people can't wrap their heads around.
No, I absolutely agree. War is bad in general, and I just think about, like, it would make Ukraine look like fucking Pee-wee's Playhouse. It would be.
Yeah, because it's your backyard.
Yeah.
I can't give up. I look at videos of Ukraine and I'm like, that sucks.
Yeah.
I look at, if I saw that happening in Baton Rouge, I'd be on my knees weeping, because it's your fucking homeland. So I don't think people really it's like the Grinch, right? Kids these days, so desensitized to movies and television. We're not worried about what we see online because we think it'll never happen here. But the British burnt our fucking capital to the ground 30 years after we made our new country, quote unquote. It can fucking happen. It's just that everything we see. Yeah, and a lot of the things we see are black and white. Like all the photos of MLK.
Yeah.
In history books and shit, those are in black and white, not because they didn't have color photography, but because they wanted to seem like we were not treating black people like property. Yeah, like 50 fucking years ago, we were like, no, they're not people. You know what I mean? Like, that's not that long ago, guys. but we put it in history books and it is manufactured to appear like it's from another lifetime, so that people don't realize just how fucked up things really are.
Yeah.
It's engineered reactions. So if we look at like everything that's going on as an engineering project, what is the trend? Like, what are we engineering towards? Well, you're basically in a farm. You are being farmed.
You are tax
And
cattle. Wake up.
yes, you are tax cattle, exactly. And if you're being farmed as cattle, what do you not want the cattle to do? Fucking escape. Don't want to have them have freedom. That's why it's illegal to have a fucking garden in some places, and the federal government wants you to register your gardens now.
I remember when COVID happened. When COVID happened.
I remember that.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. I remember that. I wonder if they're going to Photoshop those photos to be black and white as well.
They very well might, or
Yeah.
they'll add a filter to make it look like it was the early 2000s.
Like taking a 90s camcorder.
Yeah.
Like the first thing I couldn't find in stores anymore were seeds. And
dude, when they were taping off those sections, that was my line. I'm like, okay, we're fucking done.
It's
you won't let me go down the seed aisle. Fuck you.
Yeah, no, it's time to slip under there and shoplift as much as you can. This is legal advice.
Yeah.
I am a lawyer.
Absolute insanity, dude. Like, and that's, again, if you take the easily explained route,
yeah,
a lot of times people will look at things in a narrow view, right? Like, have y'all ever seen those art demonstrations where it's like a bunch of fucking trash and shit, and they arrange it in a certain perspective to look like a bird?
Yeah.
But if you change the angle you look at it by 5 degrees, it's a big pile of fucking trash.
Yeah.
That is a lot like what what is being engineered to show you is, oh, this is all normal. It looks good. But if you just change your perspective a little bit, or do like the whole follow the money thing, really quickly you go down some fucking rabbit holes, like we joked about earlier. Like, what are they doing down there? Like, I mean, I don't know. So there's a lot of shit that people get derailed on, and there's legitimately conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of shit that's like actually happening that is really fucked up that we don't talk about because it's just, there's a normal explanation or whatever,
Well, it's come up before. Nothing will make you as schizophrenic as seeing 5 things that the CIA has fully admitted to.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what's really funny, I think, about our, like, oh, we're Americans, we're rebellious. Also, our government is like, yeah, we did that. What the fuck are you going to do about it? And they do that all the time.
Yeah.
Actually.
Like
we helped the FBI
all the
run
time.
the CIA run a child sex trafficking ring, and then we investigated it, and we did nothing. The Finders Papers, Google it. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that.
Like an eye-watering amount that even after years of being in this space, I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of just how fucked and evil government can be.
Yeah.
And ours is so big.
Sorry.
Our government is so big that like you said, we can admit something, and there's so much other stuff going on that no one even cares. Like, for example,
500 things ago.
Right. We were like, what was it, like a year and a half ago now? Congress was like, yeah, aliens are real. We have a spacecraft we're making from non-human technology. But anyway, and everyone was like, I got a lot going on. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
That's way too much for me. Like, I need to finish what I'm eating before I start to even begin to stomach whatever the fuck that is.
And it's either aliens are fucking real, or they're bullshitting you about something so what is so bad that they have to lie to me about aliens?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, holy fucking shit. Congress was like, aliens are real and we've got a jet fighter made from their craft. And everyone was like, sick. Where's the Epstein list? It's insane that we're living in a time when Congress can admit to extraterrestrial life and technology and no one fucking cares.
Yeah. No one cared. And the future's got some weird. My mind jumps to a study. I can't remember. I think it was MIT did in the 70s, and they were running a bunch of, and obviously take this with an entire pitcher of salt. They had a bunch of futurists run algorithms to see when the collapse of society would inevitably happen. They said the latest 2040, and that was a little rent free in my head.
Yeah. There's also that, and there's all the predictive programming, like a bunch of the zombie shows, even going back into like the 80s.
Now
all the posters that say 2024. you know, or the Civil War stuff, right?
Oh, I'm actually looking forward to that movie. I know it's probably going to have a lot of
damn it, you're
horseshit
part
in
of the
it.
problem.
I like A24. I like A24
No, I do
as a
too.
production studio.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. I like A24. Me and my wife watch a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
My problem with that movie is that it's going to portray two things wrong. It's going to portray the resistance, if you want to call it that, or the people who seceded. I'm guessing as a fairly singular, maybe even only one color type of entity. And then it's also going to portray the flip side of that as having a pretty positive moral stance.
Yeah.
Because it's A24, there might be some good twists to that. They might show that the government's really bad, and they may show that some of the freedom fighters or whatever are decent people. I'm also really interested to see if they have if that sniper with the color painted fingernails is really a transformer or not. Because that's what people are saying. So I want to know how they worked that piece of social engineering in, like, because so now the resistance is like sexually inclusive. Like, where are we going with this? So you're telling me they're not the bad guys. Um, it's that whole like caveating of things like all men are bad. You see all like the pink hair girls say all men are bad, and then you're like even George Floyd, and they fucking explode.
Yeah.
So like you have to. I want to know how they're going to spin this, because if it's going to be good propaganda for the predictive programming of rebelling is a bad thing, how typified does the bad guy have to be?
Yeah.
Or are they going to humanize them a little bit? I don't know.
I have, I do like the director and things he's made in the past, and I have enough, probably maybe misguided faith in A24 as a production studio to hopefully it challenges our intelligence a little better than that. It's a little less, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. No, I'm.
We shall see.
I'm gonna sign up and see it, but like, who knows? Who fucking knows? I'm just a cynic about any kind of predictive programming, like leaning stuff. Now I'm like, all right, what do you want us to think this year?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it's actually pretty easy to follow. And like the memes, born too late to go to the war in the Middle East, born too early to go in the war in the Middle East, born just in time to go to war in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So that we're literally going back now, Biden's like, yeah, boots on the ground, fuck it. The greatest ally in the Middle East,
And we're so fatigued. We're just like,
okay.
Of course we're still in the Middle East. We left the Middle East, but we never left the Middle East.
Right. Yeah. Like, we haven't been that east of the East, okay, cool. We haven't, they got oil, fuck it, and this, I don't know if this will ruffle your feathers at all or not, BR, because we joked about the empire, but I think if you're going to project power that way, why not just hang on to it? And as a Brit, you may feel that this is justified. Why is Iraq not East Texas? Like, it's our fault that it's such a shit show. If we just said, you're going to fucking assimilate, here's how to hold an election, you dumb motherfuckers, and we just stayed and said, also, all your base is ours,
Now you get
all the
Burger
oil is
Kings
ours.
on every corner. Congratulations.
Yeah, like, sorry it's not halal, we'll trade you, here's light beer and fucking blue jeans, welcome to America 2.0. Do you not think that would make a little fucking stability in the region? Yeah, obviously, we would have created a projected power and a state there, but instead we left, and I think that's intentional. It creates a power gap, and now, like we talked about, we can sell a massive amount of weapons. We can train people in there. We can do this. We can do that, because who's really benefiting? People that get kickbacks from those contracts, the people that run these shadow agencies, the people appointed to power in the CIA and whatever
Middle
else.
management.
So yeah, exactly. Like, the people that are elected don't give a fuck about any of that, because they want to get their $50 million increase over 30 years of being in the Senate, and then they want to retire, and they never give a fuck about any of it anyway. So again, back to the oligarchy thing. But you talk to any veteran from Iraq or Afghanistan, they're like, yeah, we fucked that up. We never should have left, because they invested their life, the good years of their life in fighting for something that does not fucking matter at all. And we're going to send people back to do it again for the third time. So I don't know. I don't know how you can have support for a war right now in the Middle East when nobody supports a war in the Middle East since like 2008.
Yeah.
It's not going to help the election for the Democrats. I don't understand why they would even go that way.
Money.
Exactly. somebody's getting a kickback because they're about to retire, and that's it.
I mean, they're just so over about it anymore. Like, I feel like the propaganda, like, while it always feels so present, I feel like the effort has just been dialed down to like 1.
Yeah.
It's just like, fuck it, we're just gonna do this now. Another 120 million whatever, or billion or whatever the fuck to Ukraine. It's like,
yeah, 20 billion, some shit.
Do that. We're just gonna do that.
I think we're about to send another 20 billion to Israel.
Yep. Isn't that border stuff?
Isn't that
like
wild?
From the border bill.
Dude,
yeah,
it's
incredible.
Like, no one even cares anymore. It's like, I feel like most people, a majority of people, recognize that the whole thing is a clown show. And there's like
right.
vocal people from each side who are like, no, my sports team has to win the Stanley Cup this year, being the election. But like,
right.
it's this.
Well, the question is, again, multiple people, I'd say probably 30% of like military aged males recognize that everything happening right now is bullshit.
Yeah.
What percentage of those people would actually try to make a better world?
Yeah. Not
that many.
No, a lot of them are waiting on some dad or some better man to do it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, in this discussion about balkanizing, and there's always a splinter point. And for the revolution, it was Lexington and Concord. And what was the history of that event? Well, the American colonies had been grumbling about secession for 10 years. And the British government deployed there to keep order said, look, we got to take y'all's guns because you're going to rebel. And a gunfight ensues, the shot heard around the world. That sounds pretty goddamn familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Concerningly, it does.
Yeah.
It's literally a play-by-play of what's happening with the bill that's in Congress right now.
History repeats
Hey, you guys
itself.
are talking shit. There's this going on. We gotta stop you from training because then you might get good enough to actually do what you're talking about. And isn't that the warning sign? So again, and I'm not saying I'm not the fucking Messiah. I'm not saying that it's going to be me or that it should be me or any of that.
Yeah.
But and this is an honest question. It's not rhetorical. Like, what is the catalyst? And I think it is a mass amount of innocent people getting killed by the federal government.
Yes.
And that is what's going to make people say, oh, it could have been me.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened at Lexington and Concord.
Yeah.
Innocent people got killed by British regulars, and everyone woke the fuck up.
Yeah. My mind jumps to I saw on, and I'm not on Twitter at all. I feel like I say this every time Twitter ever comes up, but occasionally I will doomer myself by seeing something someone sent me. And I looked down this comment thread about the border crisis, and someone replies with something about AR-15s, because I always do, and someone's like, oh, well, AR-15. No, a Texas representative responded with just a photo of a B-2 carpet bombing an area. And then someone else replied like, yeah, AR-15s aren't going to help you from a Hellfire missile or something like that. And the whole thing just went on, and this increased dehumanization of the other political side, to the point where it's like, yeah, we'll just fucking bomb you. We're just going to turn you and your family into paste. We will kill you. Like, the implication of a carpet bombing. And then this guy goes on in the comments to be like, oh, well, I didn't mean that, but I actually did, because these guys are going to use razor wire on children. Like, the most straw man argument. And all it takes is like enough of those people to be vocal about, and the apathy of everyone else, for something like Lexington and Concord to happen again.
Exactly. And I think, as sad as that is, that's the reality. The flip side is also that propaganda is so powerful, and people really do believe the machine at this level now, that even if Lexington and Concord 2.0 happened, it would get spun as something, and there'd be so much misinformation.
Be January 6th all over again. It would be a bunch of insurrectionist terrorists. You can't think about what Daniel Shaver said about 90% of bombing victims being unintended targets, usually women and children. He did go to jail for 4 years for leaking that fact. What do you think those numbers would be like on American soil? Probably not better.
Not better at all.
Yeah.
Not better at all. And if we look at things like the firebombing of Dresden, are you guys familiar with that at all?
Yeah.
It's like 650,000 people burned alive, and like 650 something thousand of them were civilians.
Yep.
We did that to demoralize the German people, and it fucking worked.
Yeah.
But we also burned alive 750,000 people.
Because
and we did,
like it's political.
and that's it's because we dehumanized them, right? They're
Yeah.
Nazis, they're Nazi supporters, or this and that. Now, you know, Brunhilde and little Wilhelm didn't give a fuck. They just wanted to live their life, and now they're, you know, human barbecue because we were able to. It's dehumanizing. It's just chunk, just pull the fucking chute and go. So with modern warfare, on American soil, again, I don't think people are ready for that. And I don't know how. I don't know how we avoid that. I want to avoid that.
Me too.
When I keep asking these questions of like, what's it going to take? I'm not like fucking challenging people. I'm just saying like, that's where I think we're headed, and I wonder what it's going to be, what the catalyst is going to be. I don't fucking want that to happen.
I want to know what it takes to
it'd be
avoid
absolutely
it.
horrific.
I want to know what it takes to avoid it, and also avoid this weird fucking techno corporate dictatorship that we're currently in, and rapidly heading towards it getting worse. Like,
yeah, it's like the Barbosa meme. It says you best start believing in, you know, dystopian cyberpunk worlds. You living in one. I think, what do we do to avoid it? One, it goes back to, we need to call this episode the daddy episode, okay?
Yeah.
Because BR nailed it. It comes back to people not understanding good values and what to look for. And I forget the famous, it wasn't Locke, but it was one of these guys who said, when democracy realizes it can vote itself a check, it's dead.
Yeah.
And we live in a time when people are just voting for some new benefit or some small token, right? Stimulus checks.
Yeah.
Is we getting third stimulus check, you know? So we're voting now based on small things that don't matter and not on the issues that are important. And or does voting even matter?
Yeah.
Is it rigged, you know? So we've gotten to a point where there's a degradation of all of our solutions. Like the normal recourses that we would take in a civilized society, most people have shaken faith in, myself included. So if we don't have a recourse within societal norms, we're being pushed to a point where if we don't do something, we're going to lose some of the things that we hold dear. What recourse do we have? And that is what I'm saying I am afraid of, or I am cognizant of, is I think, and this is, again, I'm just doing, you know, I'm just giving my little predictions like no one gives a fuck. It's like we're sports casting talking about the Super Bowl. I think that some crazy motherfucker is going to go off and do some wild shit, and that is going to be the catalyst for overt tyrannical action.
Yeah.
And or the federal government's going to do it to themselves and say it was somebody else of a certain leaning, and that's going to give, you know.
They've been fishing for it. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we've been seeing for years, you know, news reports, and not to continue this for like another half hour, but like for for like at least a decade, we've seen various reports, whether it was the Governor Whitmer kidnapping,
yes,
thing,
like 13 of 15
like,
people were feds or federal informants or something.
yeah,
The last one's
and then
like
like
some autistic kid.
yeah, and then just this week there was like a semi-similar thing happening in Tennessee where I don't know if you guys saw this, but a guy was allegedly planning on heading down to the border, constructing explosive devices using tannerite and like fuel cans, and he was planning on basically joining up with a militia down there to secure the border, and he got arrested because he allegedly sold a silencer to an FBI agent.
They fish for it for sure.
Like it's we're at a point now where it's like, I mean, the Whitmer thing was proven to be like just riddled with informants and feds, and then when these headlines come out about, like, you know, oh, a guy on January 6th was leaving pipe bombs, or the fucking bombing in Nashville, like the explosion that happened, yeah, we're so desensitized to like things that would have been like nationwide stories for like the year, are now just like, they just little pops here and there just to seed the idea, and like, you know, like maybe these are real, maybe they're not. I have my opinions, and I'm sure you guys have yours, but like, we're just being desensitized to the fact that sometimes in America things blow up, sometimes there's groups of terrorists, and they don't even need this shit does not even need to be necessarily factual.
Yeah.
Like,
that's wild, man.
And
it
most
is.
people pay attention to the initial headline. They don't
Yep.
pay attention to later on quietly it's admitted, oh, by the way, literally everyone was a federal informant.
Yeah, we got this completely wrong and we misframed it. But the headline's in the zeitgeist now, and so it's fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting what people can become conditioned to. and the extremity that can really reach. So my wife works in surgery, and one of the people that she works with was a high schooler during all the stuff that goes on in Narcos, the show.
Oh
You know,
shit!
in real
Yeah.
life, it's in the Escobar era of, it was like, what was it, like 500 bombs that dude set off in 10 years in you know, Colombia, and all the kidnappings and the beheadings and all this crazy shit. And like that wasn't normal when this dude was a kid,
Yeah.
but for about 10 years, like he had friends that were kidnapped by the cartels and by these other people and ransomed. And like they'd be gone for a week from school, and everyone's like, "Where's Bob?" And they're like, "Oh, he's being held for ransom." And they're like, "Oh,
Ah,
sick."
fuck.
You know, and then he'd get let go, and they were like, "Oh man, how was it?" And he was like, "Oh, it wasn't so bad. They fed me well." You know, like the absolute insanity of like my friend in high school getting kidnapped for ransom and then getting released after his parents paid off the cartel. But for these people, it's just normal. Like that's, hey, that's been happening since I was 8 years old. It's normal.
No.
People can become used to almost anything if it's slow. It's the boiling a frog theory, which don't tell anyone this, but I've done that. You can slowly. You ever done this? You ever slowly boil a frog?
I have not. That the French in you is coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is
There it
terrible.
fucking is.
Yeah, well, Nate perked up because as an Asian, he was like eating weird shit. You know?
No amphibians.
But
I refuse.
Well, that's fair. They do have a lot of mucus glands. It's bitter tasting. But if you put a frog in room temperature water on a hot plate and you turn up the hot plate by 1 degree every 30 seconds or so, the water will boil and the frog won't jump out. It will sit there and boil to death because it got used to the temperature change at every degree. That's all that's happening to the American people is we're just boiling frogs.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep asking, when's the acute change going to happen that will make people jump out of the pot? And I don't know if it will.
No, we got told to stay in our homes. You'd think that would have been the acute change. Like we got ordered, not told, ordered to stay in our homes, and for like years.
People didn't fucking listen down here, and that's why I have some hope for the South at least.
Yeah.
Because like down here, like we had people cut ties with federal task forces. A couple different jurisdictions that I've worked with were like, the ATF, some of these other agencies are doing weird stuff. We no longer are going to enforce or support that. So when the task force would come in and say, hey, you know, we have a warrant, we want so-and-so, we're like, yeah, you got that. We're good. We're not, obviously, if we try to stop you, we're going to get into a gunfight with the federal government, but we're not going to be a party to this. That's a big fucking deal.
No,
Can you imagine if like,
it is.
you know, New York City had been like, yeah, we're not helping the federal government anymore. People would lose their minds, but because it's a small town in Louisiana, no one gives a fuck. But the principle is there that if you don't agree with the values that are being pushed, you can just say no.
Yeah.
You might pay some consequences, but you always have a choice.
Yeah.
And I'll be very interested to see when that actually happens for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not going to be easy choices, but you do, like, whether you're, you know, like law enforcement down in Louisiana or a fucking Auschwitz tower guard, like, you have a choice, and like history will document, well, depending on who the victor is, but you know,
right?
This shit.
No, you're 100% correct, man.
It'll be documented. People will know the choices made during difficult times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't really hide behind the I was just doing what I was ordered. It doesn't work.
Shit doesn't.
It
pass
doesn't
the
work.
Smell test.
Not at all.
Nathan's gonna go, my mind jumps to, and we're gonna do another half-hour, motherfucker.
No. I was gonna say, you guys remember when this was like a fun little schizocast that we started with?
Yeah. Dude, we started off so funny, and then we got to like the actual point of the podcast, and the last 45 minutes has been like,
just
what if it all burns down?
Full doomer.
Yeah. Well, let me just put this out here.
Yeah.
Let me just put this out here, okay? And this might give you all the vehicle to wrap up, all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The vehicle to wrap up is me kicking Nathan from the fucking shit.
I'm just as bad, dude. Look, between my ADHD and whatever spectrum I'm on.
I still want you to do the RADS test. You haven't done it yet.
What's that?
Okay, we'll talk after. We'll talk after.
Well,
we do this every episode. It's an autism test that gives you a number, and all of our...
Oh, I've taken it.
Oh, yeah, what'd you get?
17 or 18.
What the fuck?
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Dude, I got like 147.
You got a what?
147.
Oh, this is a different test. This is scored out of 60.
Okay, this one was scored out of, I don't know. I think it goes up to
goes past... Yeah, it goes
at
past
least
200.
to 223. At least.
Yeah, this one was like, you might be high functioning.
Okay.
Is what it said for like 17 out of 60. It was like you got
maybe
it nicked me.
You're 17, and this one is like you're very much not autistic.
You're something else.
No,
you're weird, but not autistic.
This one says, like, in the description of each point value, it's like you share many of the traits of people that have autism. You may be like very high functioning or like not quite diagnosable. So like I got just enough to be like really good at one thing, but I don't like love trains. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't love trains?
But
you don't love trains?
Fuck you.
I know British people have to love trains because you're not allowed to have cars or whatever. I get it.
Soon. We're still allowed them for now. Soon it will just be trains.
You're on the train track like Bugs Bunny with the little like hand pump thing. Anyway, before we got derailed again by Nathan, I do want to take this test though, for real.
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Oh my God, you did! I was about to say, can you put it in the chat? And there it is, embraceautism.com
/RAADS,
fantastic.
RAADS-R. Embrace-autism.com /RAADS-R for anyone who wants to do it.
I put it in the description.
Just put it in the description.
Put it in the description, and also put the caveat that if you actually do think that the Nazis were the good guys, then you just automatically have autism.
150 schools.
But not the good kind like you want.
Yeah.
Right, not the cool kind. You got the kind where like you believe what people tell you on the internet. So what I was going to say is like the doomer thing is really easy to buy into, right? Everybody wants to have, again, negativity is easy. We keep talking about like what's gonna be the catalyst, and it's so bad, and all of our vehicles to turn things over are gone. I don't know if that's actually true. And I'll put it this way: in the last 20 years, we've got more victories from the 2A than we had losses.
Yeah,
we have was it like 4 or 5 times as many constitutional carry states now as we did in the 90s.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've had all kinds of stuff overturned. We don't even have to serialize guns anymore, according to that. Now that hasn't been truly pursued as far as it will, but technically there is no longer federal law about serializing.
Yeah.
That will no longer hold up. And boom and boom and boom and all these different things. We have people standing up in new ways to federal overreach that they didn't have the opportunity to say no on because no one would ever thought they'd push that far. So we are winning a lot of things. And I think that the war that we are fighting, while it can be literal in the sense of legislation and issues and false arrests and bullshit like January 6th and other false flags and stuff, it's also a culture war. And what you say and what you do and what you put your time into, where you spend your money, what you post online, who you talk to, those things are actions you can control that are honestly not that easy to control by the federal government or anyone else that might be trying to manipulate you. So I would encourage anybody listening to this to go spend time with people that are like-minded. That doesn't mean go be in a cult or only talk to people the same color as you. What I'm saying is go spend time with people that you share values with, regardless of race, religion, creed, whatever else. Go actually train. Don't just buy cool shit on the internet and leave it in your gun safe.
Yeah.
Be an activist about what it is you believe. Don't be afraid to gather and talk. Don't be afraid to post what you believe online. Don't be afraid to talk about it. And I'm not saying go post a bunch of dog whistles and get yourself in trouble. But what I'm saying is, if you're just vocal, we still have massive freedom of speech. We still have massive freedom of expression, gathering, the ability to go out and train on all these things. So while you have the opportunity, and we do have so much freedom, because we started with this off recording, how great America really is compared to everywhere else, we can keep it that way if we just keep fucking trying.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to be negative and be like, man, it's so rough. We could get 1812 again and all this. While that all may be true, if we focus on that, it's going to seem like it's impossible. I think that we should wrap this up by saying this is a pretty fucking awesome place to live, and we can keep it that way if we just keep pushing for the good fight and not seeking out doom and gloom, not seeking out, civil war or whatever buzzword you want to use, whatever A24 film. But really pushing for positivity in the small community, in the friend group, in the church, in the home. Be a good daddy, as BR would tell you, even to people that maybe aren't your children. And you will actually see a change, and that change will have ripple effects. And if more people took that advice and actually did those things, be a good man, be a good husband, be a good friend, be a good father, be good on the internet to people, even though there's no consequences, right? You can't be held accountable for what you say online typically.
Yeah.
So hold yourself fucking accountable. Be a good dude. And I think a lot of these problems would solve themselves.
Yeah. I think so too. And that actually I was going to ask dad advice, but that kind of covers it.
I was gonna say, I was like, Nathan, what do we do when the guest just voluntarily gives dad advice?
The dad advice? I'm actually
okay, so
going to, and this is the last one, I promise. Totally unrelated, to kind of bring it back around and also do something kind of self-indulgent, because I was going to ask this off the air anyway, but it could be good listening for like 3 people. Fuck you, BR. You gotta deal with it.
Do it. Ask the fucking question.
I'm gonna do it really slowly, just for you. I've been helping out this startup. They're doing targets for like LEO and your average prepared citizen and concealed carriers, or whoever the fuck wants to use them. And remember those T-Rex targets that we used back in CQB for PID? Like,
yeah, the AI ones.
Yeah, the creepy AI ones. They ended up like sitting around the kill house for several months, just full of holes. They were in DAC last time I went there before they shut down. But yeah, that general idea is things like that, like targets that you like. One's a pregnant woman, one's just like a guy who looks like a hipster with, for example, a
Shoot
Starbucks
him
cup.
every time.
Every time he pulls out a cell phone, you put 3 in his chest and 1 in his computer.
That's right. If it's a Nokia, it's probably to a bomb. So,
but I had the question because I'm doing the art for this now. What sort of things would you want to see in like if you're running courses and you have the same kind of targets that we had before? It's like a gun in their hand, or in this case, like we're starting to do people that may not look like anyone, and like you actually have to process what exactly they're holding. It's a pregnant lady, but what's that under her shirt? It's Shrek, but Shrek's got 2 guns. I don't know, but more serious than that.
Jesus Christ.
So I'll break that down super easy. When we are training, are we trying to build a part or a portion of the brain to be more automatic, or are we trying to process complexities like a scenario?
Yeah.
And if we're trying to build parts of the brain to be more automatic, then I would say it needs to be pretty clear. Typically, shoot or no shoot needs to be pretty clear unless the purpose of the target is to push a certain point. Example for that: if the gun is down at their side, like I just have a gun in my hand pointed down at the ground, there's going to be questions like, is there a robber in my home? Is that someone I don't know? Because if there's a dude I don't know in my house with a gun at his side and he's not wearing, something that would make me not want to shoot him, I'm probably going to smoke that dude and ask questions later, right? Like, he has given me everything I need.
Yeah.
So creating targets that have a gun clearly pointed at the user is an easy shoot target, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, that gun's pointed at me. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Creating a target with their hands up, or a pregnant woman going, oh, with her purse, like, oh, okay. Unless I work for Planned Parenthood, that's not a shoot target. So I don't, sorry, I had to get my anti-Moloch worship in there. I would say that's going to get you guys banned right there. I would say that if you want to get any more complicated than that, then it needs to be a variety of guns or confusing non-shoot items at different angles. One of the best ones is a phone.
Yeah.
Right? A phone pointed at the actual person with their hand, like, this is a pistol.
Yeah.
Grip. Oh, look, it's a phone, and you've got the holes and things like that.
Yeah.
The police badge, someone holding up a badge, it's got that round centerpiece and it's got, shininess to it and all that. Like, people shoot those all the time. Maybe because they're like BR and just fuck the police. Or it could be that it's, they legitimately did not process what it was. So you can make targets that are intentionally confusing or that require explanation from the shooter.
Yeah.
Like, why'd you shoot him? His gun was down at his side. And he's like, well, I don't know that guy. I'm defending my house,
Yeah.
But I think that you need to provide things that are super clear intentionally, and things that are confusing intentionally.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably not a bad idea to have some of dudes in kit with rifles.
Yeah.
That target looks a lot different.
Yeah. That's one of the ones we talked about, and we actually do have that. Like, I think the company's called Medusa Targets. They have stickers. They're still brainstorming whether they want to be stickers or just like paste-its of some kind or something. And they're exactly what you said, like holding a phone up, or it's a Glock pointing towards the user, and you can just switch them out, like scenario dependent. I think they're brainstorming ways so you can change it, when you switch up the kill house. So like stickers, there's a permanence to them.
Yeah. My advice would be, if you're going to make some sort of sticker, you don't want to make it permanent, like you said. Just because. Okay, let me rephrase that. If you make a sticker or a placard, like we use the ones from Sobek Designs, the tap packs. Those are corrugated plastic and they last forever. Right. So he doesn't use an adhesive because you don't want it to stick to the target, and then you pull it off the target and it ruins the permanent thing. So unless they're going to use like a hard plastic thing that you need to just pin on, they should make it throwawayable, right? Now that's been done. People have been doing that for 40 years in the training industry, where you have a basic target with like a generic hand, and then they have a printout of the hand with different shit in it that you just staple over it. That's been done a million times over. The thing is, it's usually like a fucking revolver or a solo cup or some other bullshit. It needs to be modernized. But on the ones with people in kit, the reason is not typically, typically you're talking about like home defense. And, okay, I'm shooting a guy in a hoodie holding a revolver. Cool, got it. You don't see a lot of training for near peer stuff, which is what people are really concerned about. So you got a dude in armor and a helmet and a rifle pointed at you. It looks way different looking down the barrel of that than it does a guy like Unga Bunga have a revolver. You know what I mean? So that'd be something you guys could do that's very different from what's being offered.
That is a very good idea, and I'll pass it on. Thank you for indulging me. I don't want to keep BR up much longer.
Of course.
I realize it's like 5 a.m. where he is, and he needs his tea and crumpet.
5 a.m. You think I'm in fucking Europe? Motherfucker. No, like
it's probably like either 7 or 10. Like it's somewhere in there.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Sharing a bunch of insight and indulging our bullshit, Jared. It's always a good time.
Yes.
It was wonderful. I appreciate you guys for having me on, kind of letting me wax philosophic and get things off my chest. It was cathartic.
Hell yeah.
I appreciate that, and it was overdue. I'm glad we got this in.
Yeah, and we need to do another one with Felix. I talk to him every couple days.
Yeah,
and we've mentioned several times like we need to get on to CBRN. So
whenever you want to. I ran into him like 2 weeks ago. He's doing well. He showed me Sid, God of War Sid. We'll have to talk about him on the podcast.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, I would love to get him on with you guys and have all kinds of discussions, because he and I speak a lot about training philosophy.
Yeah.
And his mastery of the English language is insane.
He speaks it better than me.
Being able to talk to somebody with a totally different background and mindset from another country who speaks English, better than most people that speak English, has really been cool for me, because he's so articulate and he chooses his words very carefully. So it's really worthwhile to have those discussions, and I think having one on here would benefit people a lot.
Yeah,
I think so too. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well,
stay tuned.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. It was fucking awesome.
No, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you guys both staying up so late to humor me.
Hey, it's only 9 here. I'm happy to go. If y'all just let me go, I'd taken the test on the air.
We have done that before. It is
actually
process in editing, because I'm just going through like an hour of someone taking the test and choosing the funny bits. But anyway,
well,
all right.
BR needs his beauty sleep, so okay, bye.
Don't you fucking know it?
Bye.